Okay, I am actually just getting started. My screen seems like it's not giving the right view. So give me a sec. Let me just set it up. All right, so that is the right view, but the proportions are all out of whack. All right, let me fix that. Sorry, man, I'm a streaming noob. Just trying to. Ooh, is this the workspace? Oh, okay. Come on, let's make this work. Okay, and I'm almost there. Almost there. Boop. All right. And I don't need a center, right? That's probably better. Okay, so that's the window. I think with the audio today, the audio should be better than yesterday. Yesterday was a little messed up. Today though, should be all good. Let me, today I don't have I don't have a monitor, which makes this a little more clumsy to work with because I'm kind of nomadic at the moment, but I think everything should be good. And I'll be flipping back and forth between my Discord channel. So if you can chat with me right now through YouTube, or you can also chat with me in the March SAT channel in my Discord server, which is over here. I'm just going to say hi in my Discord channel, and then just say that you can message me here. I'm streaming now, and you can ask me questions here, or on YouTube. They're basically the same. I'm going to be looking at both of them. But given the fact that I don't have a monitor today, it's going to be a little clumsy going back and forth. Just know that. So I might be a little slow. If you can promise not to be too interruptive, you can also actually just join me in my Discord stream and literally just talk to me. Like you can actually verbally using the audio chat, you can verbally talk to me as well during the stream. Okay, so yesterday I had to kind of, just because of time, it takes me some time to set up my streams and stuff, and I'm just getting used to everything right now, making sure the audio works, for example. I wasn't able to do the whole literature passage, but you know what? It's all good, man. It's all good. I'm going to go through a literature passage, and I'm going to answer these questions, and primarily my focus will be trying to add more context around some of the tips that the Khan Academy teachers are offering. Potentially counter example situations, like when would you not want to follow their tips? If such a case ever arises, I'll let you know what I think about those, and I'll just also be here available to answer questions, depending on how many of you guys are asking questions. So let's get into it. Today my goal is maybe at least in the next 2 or maybe 3 hours. Let's say two because I do have a birthday dinner to go to that I forgot about yesterday, but I'm going to say 2. For the next 2 hours, I just want to get through at least the literature passage and at least one more passage. Okay, now I think we probably can do 3 passages. We probably can, but just depends on how much I have to say, how vehemently I agree or disagree with what the teachers here are saying. Now, if you were not here for the stream yesterday, you might benefit from a brief summary, which is that I have a lot of skepticism about the need to do a whole minute of a survey. This bit I am a little skeptical about. If you're curious what I said, go ahead and watch the stream from yesterday, from day 1. The active reading was all good. It was a little hard for me yesterday, but the key point that I want to convey right now in the summary is just that if you have a decent amount of experience with how fiction works, how stories work, okay, you can do a lot of the active reading primarily by reading the blurb having predictions about what could happen, and then double checking your predictions like every couple lines, like, oh, is this similar to what I was thinking? Is this like different from what I was thinking? Just keep asking yourself, how similar was my like prejudiced gut feeling view of this story to the actual story? Just keep comparing it. And that will give you that will give you something to focus on while you're reading. Okay, now today I'm going to go through these questions, and you know what? I'm not even going to reread the passage. I'm going to just do it from memory. Let's see what happens. Now it does say do questions first, one at a time. I'll do one at a time. I think that's a more natural viewing experience, so I'm going to go with one at a time. Hey Gregory, what's up? I actually ended up starting at 4 o'clock basically like you requested. I just did not manage my sleep very well, so got a little busy. Anyway, good to have you here again. Let's get into it. So I'm looking at question number 1, determining explicit meaning. We encourage you to, that's a lot of tips honestly. Let's look at the question first. According to the passage, the old man was standing in the veranda because he was excited. Excited is maybe overshooting it. Probably I wouldn't say excited, but he was sort of anticipating them, and he heard the sound of the engine. I don't know if he was watching the cars. That seems a little suspicious. They did not get a report. He heard the car. Yeah. Yeah. This is like 99% the correct answer. He was not watching cars travel down the road. If I was less confident, I would go back and double check the passage. Let me see. Did I keep the passage here? Let me see. Oops. I gotta refresh all of these just because I have this thing that saves my battery. Anyway, I'm just gonna check. Yeah, I'm just so confident. Yes, he came up because he heard the throbbing. If you don't know how I could just guess it without even double checking the passage, go ahead and ask me a question. If that was pretty easy for you, you can just move on. Let's just move on together. So determining explicit meaning. Oh, there's a video for every question. Well, let's go look. Oh no, what? There's not a video for every... What? I'm confused. There's only a video for certain questions? Oh no, this is question 1. I am so sorry. I'm reading this backwards. All right, let's look at this.
According to the passage, the old man was standing on the veranda because... Now, I've covered up the choices, so that we're not going to let ourselves be tempted. I want to just teach you the strategy of just keyword searching. Veranda is kind of a strange noun. It's not a noun that's going to be overused in this passage. And I think that if we just sort of dive back into the passage and use our brains like sponges and just skim the passage for the first instance of the word veranda, I think we'll find the answer. So we're trying to determine something explicit about what's happening in the plot from the passage. So why was the old man standing on the veranda? Let's just look for veranda and see what it says. So rather than reading this, what I'm doing is just sort of allowing my eyes to fall over the passage and just looking for, honestly, I'm looking for the letter V. I'm looking for the word veranda.
Whoa, hang on. No way. If you're going to get a perfect score, hang on. I am a little shocked at the tip here. So I'm going to go and make sure I heard this correctly. By the way, this video, it's very much sped up. I'm speeding it up 2.5 speed by using, you could do the same thing by using this, but I use a Chrome extension so that I can fine tune my control. Anyway, it's going to be sped up. I'm going to listen to this one more time because I'm actually a little shocked by the hints that was, the clues that are here.
According to the passage, the old man was standing on the veranda because... Now, I've covered up the choices so that we're not going to let ourselves be tempted. I want to just teach you the strategy of just keyword searching. Veranda is kind of a strange noun. It's not a noun that's going to be overused in this passage. And I think that if we just...
First thing I do want to say is I do strongly agree with this mentality here. The mentality of covering up the answer choices and just being like, I'm going to resist the temptation to let the answers persuade me of their answeriness, okay? Because when you let the answers persuade you of the answeriness, you get hoodwinked. You kind of get the hood pulled over you because these words can sometimes sound very similar and screw you over. So it's a good instinct to have. So I'll just start with that.
If we just sort of dive back into the passage and use our brains like sponges and just skim the passage for the first instance of the word veranda, I think we'll find the answer. So we're trying to determine something explicit about what's happening in the plot from the passage. So why was the old man standing on the veranda? Let's just look for veranda and see what it says. So rather than reading this, what I'm doing is just sort of allowing my eyes to fall over the passage and just looking for, honestly,
So this is scary information here. This is scary advice here. I would bet you that 95% of perfect scorers would not follow this advice. or at least do not naturally follow this advice. Here's why. If you're looking for the word veranda, I think you've already lost the game. What that means is you're going to end up spending more than 45 seconds to answer this question when this is one of those obvious questions that you should be able to answer in 15 seconds. The reason you should know this obviously is because not only were there basically 2 whole paragraphs about it, okay, not only that, it's like the breaking of the ice. You know, it's such an important moment in the story that you should basically have a gut feeling that, oh, right, the old man was sort of waiting for this new family from America to come and visit them. You should just kind of fuzzily remember that. And if it's like a 2-column passage, right, you should remember that it's basically like roughly in the middle, like the middle of the left. So from your side, this is the left, right? So if it's a 2-column passage, you should sort of remember that it's like in the middle of this first column. And you should already kind of know roughly what part of the passage it came out in, and you should already know the emotional meaning of that old man waiting out there on the veranda for them. Okay? So because you already know that, the maximum your eyes should do is double check the middle of the left column, double check, oh, why was he waiting out there again? Oh, wasn't it because something with the car? And then it's like, and then you should go back to the answer choices, and then you look at A and C, I think. And when you see A and C, you should be like, was he seeing the cars, or was he hearing the cars? And then over here, this is actually a great little tip. The fact that the night had been silent means, we're focusing on the hearing, right? We're focusing on the hearing. He's not watching for cars. He heard the cars and came out. So you can go and double check that passage. I don't know why my passage actually isn't. Here, I'll open this right now. Okay. He heard throbbing, right? You should just be. Honestly, you shouldn't have to be at the point of actually looking for the word. You should have at least a half memory of what the meaning of that particular passage was, and you should just be confirming. You should not be scanning. You should be confirming your gut feeling, okay? If you're trying to get a perfect score anyway, or close to a perfect score. So I'm going to finish reading listen to this video, but I basically flat out disagree with this tip.
So I'm looking for the letter V. I'm looking for the word veranda. Here I found it on line 16. I underlined it. When they reached the house, they found the old man was waiting on the veranda with the lantern in his hand. That doesn't tell me why. Let's keep reading. Moths were shuttling around on a lantern, though the old man was oblivious to them. Nothing yet. He had come out because, there we go. He had come out because he heard the throbbing of the engine in the distance. Okay, so let's move over to the question again. Let's expose the choices, and let's see if anything matches. He came out to the veranda because he had heard the sound of the car. Choice A, he was watching cars travel down the road. That doesn't sound.
Okay, one thing though that I do agree with this video on is that before looking at the answer choices, before looking at the answer choices, you should be looking at the, you should be thinking of your own prediction to the question, prediction to the answer, which is, let's be looking for an answer choice that mentions the sound of the car, is what this teacher said. And I completely agree that you should have that in your head before you look at A, B, C, D. Because if you don't have that in your head, you basically don't have a map, and you're just going out into the wilderness alone. It's a scary thing, because in this wilderness, all of these scary words will start attacking you and confusing you. So don't go into that wilderness by yourself. Have a prediction before you go in.
Right. The two boys had reported the visitors would soon arrive. That's not why. C, he had heard what he believed to be the visitors' car. I mean, that's literally what it says. So I'm going to cross off A. D, he enjoyed listening to the quiet sounds of the evening. Yeah, that's not why. The text explicitly says the old man runs out to the veranda because he had heard what he believed to be the visitor's car.
I'm going to increase the speed to 3.0.
He had come out because he heard the throbbing of the engine in the distance, which I selected was he had heard what he believed to be the visitor's car. So when you're asked to determine the explicit meaning in this way, and it's around like a proper noun, like a name, a character, or a location, or in this case, kind of ordinary noun, you can just let your brain be a
I think that's pretty much obvious. Let's move on. Okay, so determining explicit meaning, try it for question 1. All right, sure. Let's just double check these tips. I'll just make some commentary if necessary. Pick out keywords and ideas in the question, scan the passage, read around, express the answer in your own words. Strongly agree with this one. Strongly agree with this, and strongly agree with this one. These 3, I think this is honestly a weapon of last resort. You barged into the building, You had your shotgun got disabled, now you have to use your pistol. This is like your backup weapon. I would strongly not recommend making this your default. Your default should be, before you even look at the passage, you should be like, what's the answer to this question? Like, do I already know the answer to this question? It's like, what's the answer to this question? Then you should be like, oh, I'm like 70% sure this is the correct answer. Or like, I'm like 50% sure. Or I'm like 90% sure. Figure out what your confidence is. If your confidence is towards like 70, then probably your eyes should only be doing a quick glance. Like, I remember that this is on the left side bottom, or the right side bottom, or whatever, right? Just remember where that part of the passage is. In my lectures, I call this the map of the passage. So if you have the map of the passage, just remember where it is, jump to it, quickly glance, confirm your information, and come back. That's what you should be doing. You should not be rescanning from the whole, from zero again. If you're rescanning from zero, it means you basically wasted your whole time reading that passage in the first place. Okay, so that's my quick commentary on that. Determining explicit meaning, let's go. The yogurt and sweetmeats are compared to a diamond. Not a donation, a gift. Oh, wedding? No, it's not a wedding gift because it came out, it was like a recent birthday gift or something. It was like very recent. Yeah, I mean, it is compared to, I don't need to check. I don't need to go back and look at the passage. Now, maybe if you're curious how I got that without even looking at the passage, again, I literally read this almost 24 hours ago, and I still remember. Now, granted, I did read it with the Khan Academy dude's help because he kept talking, but I think any good reader should be able to do something like resembling 70% of what I'm doing right now. Okay, you should basically be strongly confident. Like, you want to be, especially if you're trying to get like a perfect score, you want to be strongly confident. Like, you want to be like high confidence for like almost every question. Now, how do you get there? That's a much longer conversation, but it really depends on where you are right now. But if you want to be at the 1600 level or like the 1550 above level, you really should be highly confident in all your questions, even if you're wrong.
In the passage, the yogurt and sweetmeats are compared to a blank. I've covered up the choices here, and I just want to dive right into the passage to see what the yogurt and sweetmeats are compared to. That's what we're looking for. So let's hop on over. Now, I know that the yogurts and the sweetmeats part happens after the family shows up, so I'm going to skip the...
I love this part, okay? I know it happens after the family part. That's the kind of thing you should already be thinking, right?
Part with the old man on the veranda. I'm just skimming these paragraphs, and frankly, doing a keyword search. I'm looking for the words yogurt and sweetmeats. And, oh, hey, there we are, line 30 underlined. Once they were inside, Mamima gave a pot of yogurt.
I don't like the keyword search. It makes it sound like you're like Google and you completely forgot what the passage is about. You should have a gut feeling of the structure of the passage and being like, when did they give the sweetmeats? And of course you give the sweetmeats when you first meet the old lady. It's like you're meeting this family that you never met before. You're going to give them these gifts. There was no need, she said, oh really?
Of yogurt and a pot of sweetmeats to the old lady. So what are they being compared to?
Anyway, we're looking for the word birthday present. I see the word birthday present, and I know that it's not an anniversary thing or like a wedding gift. It's not a wedding gift. So that's the only tricky answer. You get this word birthday present, and you honestly should just be jumping right back to the question because you've confirmed your correct answer and you should just select it. You should not spend, I think on this question, you also should be spending definitely less than 45 seconds. I think if I were taking it in real time, probably it would have taken me less than 30 seconds to get this answer.
There was no need, she said. Oh, really? She said, this is too much, she insisted, with the air of one who has just received the Koh-i-Noor diamond as a birthday present. Okay, so here it's being compared to a diamond. Come.
Okay, I'm gonna, let's jump to the end of this video to see what he says.
So I would call this one half right, but compared to the more accurate answer, Jewel, I'm going to say that option D is no good. So in a question like this, the strategy I used was an explicit one. I'm looking to see what is literally being said explicitly in the text. What are the yogurt and sweetmeats being compared to, and...
So what's the problem with generous donation? Remember, a birthday gift is not a donation. And if you thought that a birthday gift is a donation, then what that means is you have a pretty unidiomatic understanding of vocabulary. In this case, the vocabulary of donation. Because donation, like if you think about it from a purely like engineering like sort of standpoint, like donation, gifting, same thing. You give something willingly, right? Yeah, so if you take that kind of sort of mechanical approach, then yeah, they kind of sound the same. But that's not how people actually use that word. No one would be like, oh, I love your donation. No one would say that. No one would say that. So remember, definitions are not what words are made of. Words are made of how they're actually used. So focus more on when you go to the dictionary and look up a new word, do not be satisfied with just knowing the definition. That's not good enough. You should skim down to the example sentences and learn how it's actually used. Yeah, oh, what the heck? Sorry, let me back out. But I think this is the literature one, right? All right, cool. So let me come, I'm right back in. Let me just find my position and move over to, sorry, I'm gonna turn this, widget or this extension off. And I'm gonna pause it until tomorrow. Cool. Yeah, so that's question 2. Just double checking if anyone has any questions. No. All right. Now I'm looking at question 3. Words and phrases in context. Words and phrases in context. Cover up the choices. Find the word and phrase. Oh, I completely agree with all 4 of these tips. Okay. Yes, completely agree. I'm not even going to say anything. I'm just going to watch a video. Here we go. Oh, paragraph 7. With the air of somebody who has just received a gift, who has just given a gift, right? With the air of somebody, right? And it comes out twice. With the sort of vibe, with the sort of you exude a certain attitude, kind of like a behavioral attitude thing. So I'm going to say vibe for now to keep it simple. Atmosphere it works. We'll see. Demeanor. So the atmosphere is a little weird because it's overly. I think especially if you're a Korean student, we use the word atmosphere kind of incorrectly all the time because we're translating our Korean word 분위기 to English atmosphere, but that translation is not a one-to-one match. It's not a perfect match. So there's a big category of people who are really good at English but are using the word atmosphere wrong. So I think you might be tempted to choose atmosphere. But demeanor has the sort of more behavioral aspects of it, like the way that you the way that you carry yourself, and the noun form of that is your carriage or your demeanor, right? Your sort of behavioral features is what should be emphasized here. So yeah, demeanor would be correct. It'd be funny if I was wrong, but yes, demeanor is correct. So yeah, let's look at the video.
Question 3. As used in lines 33 and 35, air most nearly means what? So cover the choices and let's rip around. So rephrase if possible. How is air being used? And I'm going to read around and predict. And I'm going to bring our prediction back to the choices. So lines 33 and 35. Let's pop over the passage and look at that. There's line 25, there's line 30, and I have even marked it. So kind of me. Good job, past me. With question 3 here, I've underlined air twice. Here's 33, here's 35. This is too much, he insisted, with the air of one who has just received the going diamond as a birthday present. And again, 34, 35. Come, said Jogamama, with the air of someone who has just given the going diamond as a birthday present. So I want to come up with a synonym, a word that means the same thing as air does in this context. And so to me, they are giving.
Now, some of you guys might be struggling with just what this sentence means, so I'll just do a quick translation of it to like a different, I'll just like reformulate it. The old lady is like doing the etiquette, the dance of etiquette. Oh, no need, you didn't need to bring these sweetmeats to me, strange lady that I'm meeting for the first time. Like, of course you're going to bring the gifts, right? That's what you're supposed to do. So she's saying this kind of ritualistically. Oh, there was no need. Oh, really? She said, this is just too much. Oh, you're being too nice, right? That's basically the response here. She insisted with the air of one, with the sort of the acted out feeling of one who has just received a very, very nice birthday present, okay? Now that I reread this in context, I realize that my reading of it yesterday was wrong, and the reading of this teacher yesterday was correct, because the comparison is I received the sweetmeats, and I'm receiving this from somebody who I just met for the first time. So I'm over exaggerating my demeanor, right, my behaviors, by treating these sweetmeats as if I just got a diamond for a birthday present. Which, by the way, you don't get a diamond for a birthday present. That's not typical, right? So this is just emphasizing how exaggerated her etiquette is being, or her etiquette is. Okay, that's all it is. Let's go on.
They're giving and receiving some yogurt and some sweetmeats as like a host gift. And the old lady who's receiving it from the Choco Mama is behaving as though it's this grand rich gift, literally a diamond, the Kobe diamond. And Choco Mama is also behaving as though she is giving her a diamond, but doesn't want to make too big a deal out of it. And so I think the way that they're using air here is behavior. She insisted with the behavior of one who has just received the Kobe diamond as a birthday present. But she's saying this is too much, too rich. That's my prediction. Let's go back to the question. So what does air most nearly mean? All right. Does it mean A, atmosphere? No, I mean that's what air means, as in I breathe air, but it doesn't mean behavior. Does behavior mean absence? Choice B. No, it does not mean behavior. It does not match my prediction. C, demeanor. Okay, I know what that word means, but maybe you don't. That's fine. But let's imagine that I don't know it. So I'm going to leave it in and see if D makes more sense. D is melody. Okay, I'm looking for behavior. I'm pretty sure melody doesn't mean behavior. It means something to do with music, right? So I'm going to cross out D, but I'm going to be left with demeanor. Now, I might still not know what demeanor means.
Perfect. I love that. I love what he said. I say basically the same thing in my lectures all the time. When you don't know, don't make it positive, don't make it negative, just let it be. Just ignore it. Just let it be. You know, it might bother you. The fact that you don't know might be bothering you, but ignore it. Tell it silence. Let it make it shut up, okay? Don't just imbue it with negative or positive meaning. Be as neutral towards it as possible and move on looking for your match to your prediction, which in this case, he was saying behavior. In my case, I was saying vibe. So look for your match.
Meaning, so I'm going to circle it because I know for sure the other three choices don't match my prediction of behavior. This is a really interesting question because it reminds me of one of our top tips for words and context questions like this one. You only choose a word you don't know if you can confidently rule out all three of the other choices. If you have a question where you think you know the answer, but there's also another bigger, more challenging word you don't know sitting on another choice, don't just choose the other fancier word just because it's fancy. Trust yourself and be decisive. Choose the word you know if it feels right. In this case, we choose the fancy multi-syllable word only because we're quite confident that none of the other choices are right. Interestingly, air is an old-fashioned term for melody, but we know that that's not correct for the context here. Nothing musical is happening. And demeanor, yes, is your behavior, your appearance, the way in which you behave. So during the pre-reading step, I marked the part of the passage and underlined the word air both times it was used, enabling me to then later return to the passage, quickly find the line, and make a prediction about what the word meant and how it was being used. Question 3.
Right. During the pre-reading surveying part, he underlined the word air. I continue to believe that's a waste of time. All right. But besides that, everything else I completely agreed with in that video. Analyzing purpose and citing textual evidence. Not just double checking every once in a while for the chats. Okay, cool. So purpose and citing. I don't know why this is combined into one. Oh, it's a paired question. That's why. Okay. All right, let's try starting your version with how, what, or why. I'm not sure about this tip. I have to just try it to see what it works, how it works, and see what I can come up with. The character's behavior during the gift giving mainly serves to. So I guess if I were to rephrase this question using this instruction here, this tip here, I would say, why does the author what does the behavior during the gift giving serve to? I don't know if this is worth it, because literally just thinking of the question is harder than just reading the question itself. Color me skeptical. I'm not sure it's worth it. Maybe there's a more tight version, like maybe the wording here is just a little awkward, and maybe the teacher means something much more specific, but I'm a little skeptical right now. Try to find the answer to your version of the question. Right. Well, you should always be doing that. So I agree with that. Now, let me actually try to predict the answer. The character's behavior during the gift giving mainly serves to highlight. Again, I haven't really looked at the answer choices, so I'm just and I'm looking away from the answer choices right now. It serves mainly to like something about etiquette, like just demonstrate the sort of formality of like the first meeting. Now, when I was actually reading it the first time, I had this sort of confusion about what the relationships were between these people. And I think that would have actually sucked up a lot of time if I had continued with that confusion. But now that I know that the relationship is that these are two families that are about to be united into one family through the marriage of their son on the American side and their daughter on the Indian side. they're both Indians on both sides, but American Indian or Indian American, I guess, and then the daughter on the Indian side, right? Once I know that sort of situation, then I know that the meeting of these two families is gonna be pretty formal. I mean, these are parents meeting each other for coming wedding. So the behavior during the gift giving serves mainly to emphasize the formality of the exchange, something like that. Stress the need. I don't know about. See, this is the one that's tempting because it's like kind of topically in the same area, but it's wrong. I know it's wrong because if it serves mainly to, okay, if it mainly serves to, then you're telling me that that's why the author put it in there. The author is trying to stress the need for polite behavior to us. Okay, so for rhetorical purpose questions, you have to think about it from the author's perspective. Is the author stressing the need for polite behavior to us? I could go for this if I were confidently rejecting A, B, and C, but I don't think that's the right answer. In fact, my eyes are going right now to B. So A is wrong because it's not the sweetmeats are not actually lavish. Okay, it's not emphasizing how lavish this is. Okay, it's just the way they're talking. It's definitely the opposite of indifference. They're making quite a fuss about it. So inflate the significance of a gesture. I know that this is correct. I know it's more correct than D for sure, because it mainly serves to, from the author's perspective, right? In this case, the author is kind of a weird, limited. I shouldn't say author. I should say narrator. But the narrator is like a sympathetic, limited third person. If you really want to get technical about this, right? It's a sympathetic, limited third person perspective, mostly associated with Sandeep, the 10-year-old child. So from his perspective, it's all kind of ridiculous. So from the narrator's perspective, we're just sort of like kind of showing how inflated this whole thing is. So I'm going to go with B. I'm going to cry if I'm wrong, but let's see. Yes. Yes, that's correct. So it's funny. It's I'm not usually nervous when I do this in real life. It's just more nervous when I do it recorded. But yes, this is the best choice. It is a very simple gift, but they created the illusion that had a tremendous. Did the word "create the illusion" come from the actual passage? That's kind of interesting. Oh, I guess it does. That actually comes from the passage. Now, that's weird. The explanation to this answer gave me the answer to this, so it's kind of just cheated through that unintentionally. But let me just double check all the other ones. Right, this is emphasizing the lack of value. Oh, this is the politeness. There's no need. Oh, this is just irrelevant. So yeah, only B remains. Okay, let's look.
All right, we have two questions here. The first one,
let me increase this
character
to 2
behavior
points.
mainly serves to, and I've covered the answer. And the following question asks us to cite textual evidence, which shows provides the best evidence for the answer to the previous question. So the answer to question 5 is going to support the answer to question 4. So let's think about 4 first. This is asking two questions actually. What is first character's behavior during gift giving, and what is its main purpose? What does it do? So let's go over and look at
okay.
which, as we
Just
see,
a quick question. I'm just noticing there are some questions. Hey guys. I'm not sure, Ricardo, if you're actually talking to me or to other people, but I'm not genuinely studying for the SAT because I already went through college and everything, so I'm not personally studying for the SAT, although I might need to do some brush up for math. But I am actually going to take the SAT in a week, this Saturday. I'm going to take it just to suffer with all of the other high school juniors and some seniors in the world. So I'm going to suffer together with you guys taking the SAT this Saturday.
We can see from question 5 happens somewhere between lines 37 and 52. Right, so I can see here that at line 30 at the start of the gift giving, so 52. So this is about like the feet touching. That's not the gift giving. So I'm going to scoot back up to line 30. Okay, once they're inside, we may get the pot, yogurt, and the pot sweetens the old lady. So how are the characters behaving during?
So one thing that's interesting about this pair of questions is that they actually the evidence doesn't come where you think it would come. You think it would come towards like 35-ish, right? But actually the evidence comes later on when we get the perspective of Sandeep. Guys, I basically predicted that happening. I don't know if you remember what I said like 5 minutes ago, like 3 minutes ago, okay? But I said, what is the narrator thinking? What is the narrator thinking? Is not the exact wording I said. I forgot the exact wording I used, but basically, when we talk about rhetorical purpose questions, you really want to be in the perspective of the author, or in this case, since it's fiction, the narrator, and trying to ask what it accomplishes for the story. And what this little ritual of them being super formal, what that accomplishes for the story is it gets us to be a little bit more understanding of the perspective of the son, Sandeep, who's just sort of, or I guess, of the main character, Sandeep. I don't want to say the word son because it's a little confusing, but the main character, Sandeep. It helps us to view the scene from his eyes. That's what it serves to do rhetorically. So just keep that in mind. And let's just continue with this video.
During the gift giving. That's the first thing I'm thinking about. How do they behave and why are they doing it? And so Mamima and Chogamama, right, the mother and father-in-law, are giving this modest host gift of yogurt and candy to the old lady and the old man. And first, the old lady says, "Oh, this is too much," as though she's just gotten, the Cody Moore diamond, extremely valuable gem. And Chogamama replies that it's not a big deal. Come, it's nothing. So he's behaving as though it is a big deal, even though he's trying to downplay it, because he's pretending as though he's the person that's just given someone Cody Moore diamond as a birthday present and refuses to be overawed by his own generosity. So he's pretending as though he's given a great gift, but also simultaneously pretending it's not a big deal. And Sandeep, the narrator, the main character, says it was nothing, of course, only ungrown sweets and yogurt, but they fussed and created the illusion that it was something unique, untasted, and unencountered. So everyone is behaving as though it's a big deal, even though it's not a big deal. So they're playing it up, even though it's nothing. That's how they behave, and that's why they're doing it. They're creating the impression, the illusion, that the host gifts are very big and very important. So I'm going to expose the choices for question 4 and then see what we have. The purpose of the behavior is mainly to, choice A, emphasize the lavish value of the gift. Lavish means expensive and very fancy. And we know from the context of the passage that it was in fact not a fancy gift, it's just yogurt and candy. So I'm going to cross that off. B, inflate the significance of the gift.
It is just yogurt
what is
and
happening. Right?
sweet meat,
I'm going to leave
yeah.
this for now because it might be something closer. But definitely going by Sandeep's depiction, right? His narration at the end of that paragraph says, it was nothing. After all, they behaved as though they fussed. And it seems as though we're something untasted and unique and untasted and unencountered, is what it actually says. So let's leave B for now, because I crossed it off quite yet. C, the purpose of behavior during gift giving is mainly to convey indifference towards the gift. And I know that's wrong because I know what indifference means. Indifference means that you don't care, but everyone seems to care, like a great deal. Indifferent would not describe how Chogamama and the old lady and the old man and Mamima react to the gift giving. They're pretending like they're handling diamonds. So indifference.
And by the way, guys, if you're watching and you are uncomfortable with the idea of indifference, you have to know the word indifference. Now, Ricardo, I mean, for me, I honestly don't need to stream for my own learning purposes, but thank you, Ricardo. I'm trying to see if it works for other people. Actually, is what I'm trying to do. So I'm curious if it helps you guys. I'm curious if watching someone else think out loud helps you guys understand your own thinking process, because that's sort of my big experiment right now, because I know that that's not what most YouTubers do.
So difference is not the choice I would make. And then D, stress the need for polite behavior. Well, they are indeed.
Anyway, I'll just repeat that last sentence that I said before speaking to Ricardo. The main thing is you really don't want to not know the word indifference. You have to know the word indifference, okay? It's super important.
Being very polite. But which one is the main point? Is the main point to inflate the significance of the gesture, or is it D, to stress the need for polite behavior? If we're having trouble deciding, let's go on to question 5 so we can look for evidence of the previous question. And I'm pretty sure that C and D occur outside the gift giving scene. Let's make sure really quickly. I think that's a feet touching. Yeah, there's line 44. That's Sandeep's. The married couple stoop to touch Chogamama's feet, everyone's feet, and Chogamama struggles to keep hands away from the feet. That's C, 44, 46, and then 50 to 52. I have not met you for 2 years, darling. You must not stop me. Also, has nothing to do with the gift giving. That's just a ritual breeding that the son-in-law is trying to do, and the father-in-law is trying to avoid. So I'm just going to cross those off, because those don't have anything to do with sweetness and yogurt. And now let's go back to 37, lines 37 to 40, and see if there's evidence either for inflating the significance of the gesture, or it's D, stressing the need for polite behavior, explicitly supported by the text. So line 37, beginning with it was nothing. It was nothing, of course. Only ungrown sweets and yogurt, but they fussed and created the illusion that it was something unique and untasted and unencountered. So it was nothing to yogurt is the first choice, and then they to unencountered is the second. So this is choice A, and this here is choice B. So which one explains the way that they behave? Choice A suggests, well,
I don't know if I think we kind of got it. I think we got it. Let me just make sure I can summarize what I think the main ideas were. I would not do this. I don't think the teacher, did this. So I would not necessarily follow this tip. I would definitely predict my own answer to the question before just jumping right into it. I would definitely do that. And in this particular case, just being aware of the fact that rhetorical purpose is always from the perspective of the author or the narrator, that I think helps you hone your thinking a little better, makes it easier to eliminate D. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments below. Even if you're not watching this live, if you watch this later on, you can shoot me your questions, and I'll do any further clarification if necessary. All right, then moving on to question 6. Let's go. Analyzing purpose. this is sounding like a little repetitive, all of these tips, so I'm going to move on. I don't have any further thing to say about these tips. The description of Chotomama and the son's interaction mainly serves too. Oh, this is the son. Actually, now that I've clarified the relationship of these two in context, such an interesting scene, and I just want to share with you how interesting that scene was. Okay. In fact, let me get into the passage real quick. So, oops. Let's go over here. Oh, no. There's no need for all of this. Now, what actually is this scene? Guys, Chotomama and Mamima and the mom and Sandeep, they are all coming from presumably the United States. I mean, it could be UK, it could be anywhere else, who knows? But presumably, these are the modernized people, quote unquote, who've lived in the West. But from this westernized Indian family, okay, from Chotomama and Mamima, who do not live in India anymore, is born a son. And this son is getting married to a woman in India. Okay? And so imagine this, right? You are the father, you're like a second generation Indian American father, and you have this third generation son who is no longer, whom you presumably raised kind of in a rather Americanized fashion. But then he goes off to India, and then he does this extremely traditional thing of bowing to touch my feet, you know? And isn't that such an interesting and weird little thing to happen? Like it's such a clash of like generational and cultural values. And I think if you were reading this slowly without the rush of trying to answer the questions, you know, you'd feel how kind of touching in a very kind of twisted and sort of unusual way this particular scene is. So I do want to share that particular scene. So what does the description serve to do? It serves to sort of highlight generational contrast, a cultural contrast, and even the fact that they haven't even seen each other in 2 years, all of that stuff. Okay. Oh, B, I just saw it. I'm automatically drawn to it, but let's just double. Yeah, complex is a little maybe too broad. Now I see that they diverge in their approaches to cultural practices. The reason I'm jumping there away from B now is because the cultural practices, this is textually supported literally in like the next sentence. Misinterpretations is probably wrong. Routine is also wrong. We're not being that critical of it, so it's almost certainly A. For this, I'm basically like 90% sure, so I can just do check. But before I do it, because since you guys might not be 90% sure when you do this, I'll show you what I'll do to just confirm. Okay. Remember, unlike what this teacher is saying, I strongly recommend that you do not go and scan the words Chotomama and son. You don't scan those words. You should already know where it is in the passage. If you don't know where it is in the passage, you already lost. You're very far from 1600. So you should know where it is in the passage. Just jump to it and confirm. And how am I going to jump to it and confirm? I'll show you right now. I'm going to come over here, and I'm just double checking this sentence. Right? Because this is the sentence that sort of ensconces, it sort of like packages this dialogue for us. Okay? This is the dialogue. This is the action itself, the objective fact of what they said. But then this is the interpretation on top of it, explaining to us the meaning of this action. And what is this thing here? This was half a token gesture towards modesty, half towards the new modern India. So what is this referring to? It's talking about Chotomama, the son's father's modernity. Okay, the son's father's Chotomama's rejection is a indication of his modernity, which then gets directly contrasted in parallel structure, okay, against the son's insistence on being modest and also traditional. Okay, so I already have my clue, and it would literally take me, I should only take me 10 seconds to just confirm what I was already looking for, and I confirmed that they have diverged in their idea of modesty, so I'm going to go with that. Okay, what's this random check over here? That freaked me out. I was like, are you seriously telling me B was the correct answer? This is just a bug, I think. Okay, dude, I flipped out for a second. Okay, let's check the video.
The description of Choto Mama and the son's interaction mainly serves to blank, and I covered up the choices, so we can form our own impressions about what we expect the answer to be. So let's break this question down. Let's rephrase it. We're looking for the purpose of the description of Choto Mama and the son's interaction. Okay, so first of all, what is the son and Choto Mama's interaction? How is it described? And then what does that description do in the story? So let's go over to the text and take a look. And we know from our pre-read that this interaction takes place after the yogurts and sweetmeats bit. So let's start reading at line 41. The son and the daughter-in-law emerged shyly from the anteroom. They both stooped gently to touch Choto Mama's feet and Sandeep's aunts and his mother's feet, a traditional greeting and a mark of obeisance towards one's elders. Oh, no, said Choto Mama, struggling to keep the son's hand away from his feet. There's no need for all this. This was half a token gesture towards modesty and half towards a new modern India, Nehru's secular India, free of ritual and religion. I have not met you for 2 years, Dada, said the son, struggling to get his hands near Choto Mama's toes. You must not stop me. This was half a token gesture towards modesty and half towards the old traditional India, Gandhi's India, ceremony and custom. First of all, what's going on in this little scene? So the son and the daughter-in-law, Choto Mama and Mamina's daughter and her husband, are trying to touch everyone's feet, right, as a traditional greeting and mark of obeisance and respect towards their elders. Choto Mama doesn't want his son-in-law to touch his feet. He says it's unnecessary, and this is described as a gesture towards modesty and towards the new modern India. Whereas the son-in-law, the son here, says, you mustn't stop me, this is very important, because I haven't met you for 2 years, presumably since he got married. And the narration, Sandeep characterizes this as a gesture towards both. So they're both making a token gesture towards modesty, which is the same thing that's happening in the gift-giving sequence. Oh, no, please don't. Oh, you really shouldn't have. But here, there's also this gesture towards old India, Gandhi's India, ceremony and custom. So I'm going to say that the purpose of this description illustrates the tension between the old India and the new. And it's kind of strange because the older people are trying to push India away from tradition, and the younger people are trying to push India back towards tradition. So let's go back to the question and expose those choices. So we got. So the question is that it's going to illustrate the division.
Just moment of literary appreciation there. The older people, this teacher just said, the older people are the one. Okay, he said it's kind of strange because the older people are the ones that are trying to push the kids towards modernity, and the younger people characters are the one who are trying to retain tradition. And that's what I mean. That's like the weird, that's literally what I was talking about earlier about the you being a second generation Indian American and raising a third generation son who then goes off to marry a woman in India. That's exactly what I mean. It's such a strange and interesting scene. So I just want to share that. Let's go on.
In Indian society. That's my prediction. So let's see what the choices are there for us. All right. The description of the interaction serves to A, show how the characters diverge in their approaches to cultural practices. That seems pretty straightforward. I'm not going to cross that one off right now. B, emphasize the characters' complex relationship. That seems a bit weaker, but I'm not going to cross it off right now. C, stress the characters' misinterpretations of Indian history. Now I think it's possible to get caught on this one because it mentions 2 figures from Indian history, both Nehru and Gandhi. But I think that neither of these characters are depicted as misinterpreting that history. And especially the word stress would suggest that it comes up multiple times. I don't think that's the case. So I'm going to feel quite confident in crossing this out. Choice D, the description of Choto Mama and the son's interaction mainly serves to depict how the characters created gestures that became routine. So the issue here is the word gestures, right? Because we see this multiple times in that chunk of the passage, right? This was half a gesture towards modesty, I believe is the phrase that keeps getting used. Frequently choices will contain some element of the passage. So if you're moving a little bit too quickly, you might get caught on that and say, I recognize that must be it. But I think it would be difficult to argue that Choto Mama or the son invented those gestures that became routine. The feet touching seems to be an established tradition that Choto Mama is trying to move away from. And since it does seem to be an established tradition, neither should we be able to claim that the son invented or created it. So that leaves us with A and D, emphasizing the characters' complex relationship or showing how the characters diverge in their.
Right. The creating these gestures that became routine, the inventing of these gestures, we don't have evidence for that. Also, the fact that it became routine, that's overly negative. I mean, this is just highlighting the difference in the 2 characters. We have a perfect parallel comparison literally in the verbal structure of that passage.
In their approach to cultural practices. Well, I think we can cross off B because I don't think that the characters have a very complex relationship. They haven't seen each other in 2 years. So even though this is a possibility, and even though in some ways the relationship does seem to mirror a tension between the old India and the new, I think that A is in fact much closer to the full truth, the main purpose.
If you say complex, I mean, you might feel that the relationship is complex, and that's why you might be tempted to choose B. But remember, with rhetorical purpose questions like mainly serves to, just remember, there should be textual evidence of what the author what larger point the author seems to be making. In this case, it's not an author, it's a narrator. But in this case, with the narrator, what's the point that we're seeming to make? What does this help with in terms of the story? You should be able to point to some other part of the text and be like, oh, this sets up for this, or this is an example of this, or this is a contrast against this. You should have those kinds of words ready in your head and be able to draw connections in what the narrator or author is trying to do in the overall text. Okay, so just have that in mind.
main purpose of that description is showing how the characters diverge in their approach to cultural practices. Shotanama is making half a gesture towards the new India of Nehru, and the sun is making a gesture towards the old India of Gandhi. So again, what I did there was I broke down the question into chunks, right? So making sure that we're talking about the description of Shotanama and the sun interaction really helps me zero in on what the question is asking. It's not what the interaction itself serves to do, because that has a different meaning to those characters. What we're talking about is how the narrator describes it. And so first we have to figure out, okay, concretely what's happening, then what is the description of it, and finally third, what is the function of that description? I made an observation, I made a prediction, and I checked that prediction against the choices.
What is the function of that question? His explanation I thought was a little abstract, but it's totally true. So I think there's other ways of phrasing that, but I agree. Now, just double checking anything. Ricardo, thank you, amazing. I'm going in. All right, we have nothing else to worry about, so let's go on to question 7. Rephrase the question to take control of it. I guess, I don't know about this emphasis on the how, what, or why. Okay, I don't know if I don't honestly care too much about creating a question for the question. I would rather just formulate a sentence, right? So what I mean by this is each question here, almost all questions on the SAT tend to be a sentence stem where we begin a sentence, but we don't complete the sentence. And it's basically a blank. And then we have the end of the sentence over here, or sometimes the middle of the sentence over here, right? That's that's very rare, I think. Actually, does that ever happen if it happens in the middle of the sentence? But from what I remember, it's almost always at the end of the sentence, we get the answer choices, right? That's how they structure the questions. Let's just double check to make sure I'm not BSing you guys. So this is just an open-ended question. This is, a partial sentence. Where'd these questions go? This is a partial sentence. Right? So almost all of them are, sentence stems, okay? And so when you're reading the sentence stem, I honestly don't think you need to go and turn the sentence stem into a question again and split it out. I would rather just if the sentence stem itself has harder vocabulary than you're used to, then you can kind of simplify the vocabulary of it in your head, But if the sentence stem, if you're comfortable, honestly, if you're trying to get a 1600, you should be comfortable with the wording of all the sentence stems, except for the really complicated ones when they do like two passage comparisons. Where sometimes the question stem itself is like super long, but for any sentence stem that's like any question stem, I'm going to say question stem because that's actually the word I use. These partial sentences that are question stems, for any question stem that isn't like more than 2 lines long, all right? I would just like literally just read it as it is, and then just fill in the end of the sentence on my own before looking at the answers. So I'm just making a comment back on this tip. I would generally not agree with this tip. I wouldn't really rephrase the question to take control of it unless you're really struggling with the wording of the question. But if you're really struggling with the wording of the question, I think you should be more realistic about whether you can get like a 1600. You probably need to spend a little bit more time with just learning the vocabulary of the questions themselves. And I think vocabulary.com actually has a great resource for that. If you want to join the vocabulary.com group, you can take quizzes to get yourself more familiar with the words that come out in the question stems. Okay, but you really, if you're aiming for like a close to perfect score, you really should not have to rephrase the question. You should just be able to have understand the question stem as it is, and then just fill in the blank on your own. Now, moving on to consider, yes, with perspectives, you really should have I honestly don't know. I've actually never taught this way, like strongly positive versus mildly positive. But, I think that's fair. I've never specifically taught that. I do have one sort of academic nitpicky comment that I want to make about this word neutral. I think on the SAT, a lot of times you don't tend to get neutral per I'm just iffy about the word neutral because it makes it sound like you have to have no opinion whatsoever. So I think it could be a little misleading. Now, if it's too academic for you and if this doesn't make any sense to you, just ignore what I'm about to say, okay? I'm only going to take like 20 seconds of your time. But basically what I'm trying to say is oftentimes it's more like mixed or balanced or blended, right? That they're or even conflicted sometimes. You know, a perspective can have a view of some of the positive aspects and some of the negative aspects, and it's sort of mixed and ambivalent and conflicted, you know. But a lot of times you won't have a completely neutral perspective. I just find that it's not very common on the SAT. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's my gut feeling from like the dozens of tests I've seen. So use the process elimination. Does that even need to be stated? Well, I guess if you are not comfortable with the process elimination, just remember, don't be biased against answer choices that you don't understand. If you don't understand it, don't make it a negative or a positive. Some kids have too low confidence, so as soon as like, for example, they see like C, blah, 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 and then it's like, oh my God, I don't know these words. And because they're underconfident, they're just too nervous about it, they actually choose C merely because they don't know it. If you're doing that, you have a problem of overly low confidence, okay? Conversely, some people, when they don't know it, now this is actually relatively uncommon, but some people, when they don't know what C means, they just ignore it. And in that case, you're being overly confident. Don't do that either. Just be neutral and just be like, I will choose you only if I've eliminated all the other ones, or if I haven't eliminated all the other ones confidently, and if I'm stuck between you and the other guy, like 50-50, then I'll just randomly choose you, okay? That's how you should approach the process elimination. Don't be overconfident or underconfident in yourself. Trust your gut, and if you don't know, be neutral. Over the course of the passage, they're being a little silly, immature. I'm not even gonna, yeah. Thank you. What's with these checks? I don't understand these checks. Does that mean, is that just a bug? It must be a bug, right? Yeah. Yeah, he complains they're mad. And yes, by the way, if you are curious, I literally did read this, 20 hours ago, and I just do remember it. Because I remember the story. The story is just like this kid who's like kind of strung along on this trip to India, and he's like, man, what's with all these adults being like weird? You know, that's kind of the whole story.
Over the course of the passage, Sandeep comes to view the adults as blank. I've covered up the choices because I want us to rewrap, I want us to rephrase this question, and then predict.
Let's go to 3.5 speed, because I find that
POV point of view question. Analyzing a character's point of view. You can see how the character Sandeep comes to view the adults over the course of the story. It's really looking for Sandeep's opinion on the adults, right? And then the next question is, who is Sandeep? We remember Sandeep is, and this question is the function. I remember that Sandeep is mentioned in the blurb. Don't forget to check the blurb. Is your friend. It's very useful. It's very important. This passage is about demonstrations on address. You mentioned a boy named Sandeep traveled with his father and his uncle his family in Calcutta. Alright, so let's just do a keyword search and look for the first instance of the name Sandeep in the passage. See it. There you go. The first search. Sandeep 143. Sandeep's ants and mother's feet. Not really about Sandeep himself. Keep going here. Line 55. Sandeep, meanwhile, had come to the conclusion that the grown-ups were mad. Each actor in her own fashion. That seems like a definite expression of Sandeep's opinion about the adults. Let's read some more. Simple situations return in context. Not until then did everyone feel important and happy. Will they never grow up? Sandeep irately, so he's irritated and thinks they're childish. Okay, so we got an opinion that Sandeep thinks that the grown-ups were mad, that is to say, unhinged, right, or that they're immature. So I'm gonna go back to passion, and I'm going to write in childish here. And childish doesn't work with things in phrasing, because that's the other. That's what Sandeep means by mad. Let's go to the choices. So which one of these choices best matches my version of childish? Not strict. Strict and childish don't mean the same thing. Reserved and childish don't mean the same thing. Sophisticated, let me say, let's pretend that I don't know what sophisticated means. So I'm gonna leave it for now. And D, immature. Well, immature and childish could be synonyms. They can mean the same thing. I'm gonna start with D. And I'm gonna cross off C. If you don't know a word like sophisticated, try to resist the urge to go for the longest, most complicated, most fancy looking word just because it's the longest, most complicated and fancy.
Oh, that's interesting. You know, this is common. This is a common tip that a lot of people give. I find that honestly, it kind of gets like, I feel like there's a more direct way of saying it, which is the way I said it. But it's up to you. You guys sort of formulate it the way that's natural for you. Okay, so let me repeat what this teacher said, which I think is a very common tip that gets passed around, and then my version of it. Okay. You guys can be the judge of which one sounds more natural to you. This teacher just said, resist the temptation to just choose something because it's long and fancy sounding. I think on face value, that's true. So I think you should resist that temptation if you have that temptation. But my concern with that way of saying it is that it makes it sound like statistically it's less likely that long, hard words will be the right answer, which I also don't think is true. I think it's sort of just is the appropriate word. So my version of this is, if you don't know the meaning of it, give it a strictly rational percentage probability of it being correct based on how many you eliminated. So if I eliminated 2 out of 4, then you know what? It's a 50-50. If I only eliminated 1 out of 4, then it's a 33% chance. And if I eliminated 3 out of 4, then it's 100%. Now, you might still be wrong because you didn't understand some of the other words correctly or whatever, but just be strictly rational, mathematically rational about it is my approach. Let me know what you think about that, because I do think, I guess, verbally speaking, it does sound a lot easier to just say like, hey, resist the hard word. I mean, I think that's easier to say it, but I think what I'm saying is probably more accurate. So you tell me what you think. Moving on.
Trust your gut. If choices are left or right, a complicated word you don't know, and what you do know you feel confident about, choose the word you know you feel confident about. Yes, you're not trying to test your knowledge of vocabulary words, especially on questions like this, even about vocabulary and context. So that's how I got to choice D as an answer. Now, I think the question is intimidating because it's over the course of the passage, and that might make you think, oh no, I need to reread the entire passage. We have this gift in the form of the specific citation of the name Sandeep. So all we need to do is search for that character's name and look for moments when that character's opinion comes to the fore of the narration.
This is going back to that scanning approach, so, but you know what? We're at the end of that video. Let's move on. Okay. Hang on, let me just double check on my stream real quick, make sure nothing weird's happening. All right. Cool. Moving on. Sandeep would be most critical of which action? Whoa! That I do not know. But I do know where I would find this. Okay, so my map, I don't remember the answer to this question once. I can't even predict. I mean, I guess I could force a prediction here. I'll force a prediction. My prediction is something like being polite, being excessively polite without really meaning it. Something like that, okay? But what's my confidence level? My confidence level is like literally like 40%. I'm not even 50%, you know? I'm not even 50-50 right now on that. I'm very low confidence on that. So in this case, what do? I have to go using the map of the passage that I have. You know, if it's a 2-column passage, was it the top left? Was it the middle left? Was it bottom left? Was it top right, middle right, bottom right? You know, using my map of the passage, roughly where is it? Now, by the way, yesterday I didn't actually read it in the 2-column format, but I'll go find it. But what is the it that I'm finding? I'm looking for clues of the kinds of things that Sandeep would be critical of. Okay? And it says would be most, so it's a little bit hypothetical, right? We don't actually have him actually criticizing necessarily. We're looking for a hypothetical about what kind of thing he would be critical of. Although I'm looking at this, and normally I don't look right at the answer choices, but in this case, the answer choices are really short and easy to read. So you know what, the answer's already there. What? This question's too easy, man. Yo, I thought this was gonna be like a much better like learning opportunity, but it's not. It's not even just he would be most critical of. He actually is most critical of, dude. Yo, I'm like I'm 90% confident. I'm not even gonna double check the passage. I wish we had a harder for the Khan Academy. I kind of wish they had a little. Well, you know what? Maybe they're doing it intentionally. Maybe they're actually choosing easy questions for the sake of explanation. But it would be nice to have some harder questions here. Anyway, let's move on. It's the correct answer. He complains that the adults turn simple situations into dramatic ones. And here, I'll just show you. It's at the very end. We finally shift over to Sandeep. The grown-ups are mad, each in their own way. Simple situations were complicated, and people only feel important when they complicate things. Will they never grow up? Okay. dude. This could be a hard question though if you're not really good at two things that I mentioned multiple times over the last 2 days, which is when you read this blurb, do you have an intuitive sense of what you're looking for, what kinds of things you're looking for? Okay, if you don't remember what I said yesterday, go ahead and go look back at that video when I started it, when I started reading this. Okay, do you have an intuitive sense of what kinds of things would happen only from reading the blurb? And second, do you have a good sense of what the narrator is trying to accomplish, right? Where the focus of the narrator is. So if you are good at the rhetorical purpose questions, that typically means that you tend to have a good sense of what the narrator is trying to accomplish. So that's correlated with each other. So pay attention to that. Okay, those are two very important skills for reading literature, and basically any passage, really, not just literature. All right, moving on. I'm actually getting a little tired just watching.
I'm looking at question 8 here, but I left up question 7 because I think.
If you think it's not really necessary for me to comment on every single video, no, if you think it is necessary, please object, but I'm going to probably start skipping after this one.
The two questions are kind of interrelated. In question 7, I chose D for the answer, suggesting that Sandeep comes to view the adults as immature over the course of the passage. Question A asks, Sandeep would be most critical of which action from the passage? So we know from the previous question that the thing he's critical about is the immaturity of the adults. And specifically the things that Sandeep finds ridiculous are the overblown gift-giving scene and the foot touching scene. So choice A, the two boys playing Carol. And instead I get why this would seem tempting because it's about two boys and something that Sandeep criticizes immaturity, but he is specifically critical of adults being immature, not boys being immature. I'm going to cross out. Amina's inquiry about the gender of the child. I'm not sure. I'll go check it out in a second. I'll dive into the old lady's reaction to gift. And the old lady's reaction to gift is part of the yogurt and feet touching. And if it doesn't, I feel pretty confident that we can knock it out. But first, let me run down choice D to see if there's anything Sandeep was critical about when answering Amina's inquiry about the gender of the child. Here we are on line 10. And she straightforwardly asks, is it a girl or a boy? So Amina rolling down the window, the girl's a boy. Amina roll up the window for the excuse again. I don't detect any opinions or judgment or criticism from Sandeep here. This also has nothing to do with the exchange or the feet touching.
Let me just double check what the teacher is checking. What is the teacher looking for right now?
And if it doesn't, I feel pretty confident that we can knock it out. But first, let me run down choice D to see if there's anything that Sandeep was critical about when answering Amina.
I know what I want to say. This could be you, okay? This teacher right now, the speaker, I'm going to keep saying teacher. This teacher right now is actually brute forcing A, B, C, D. No, well, actually, I guess B, C, D, okay? What I mean by brute forcing is going and double checking B. It could B be correct? Could C be correct? Could D be correct? If you ever find yourself in the position where you're going to brute force more than two answers, you better have a damn good reason that you're brute forcing. 90% of the time, you should be circling the answer choice. Circling the question. Admitting first, actually, before even you circle the question, you should first admit to yourself that you were inefficient with your reading, that maybe you're a little lost, and that now you're about to do something that's going to take a lot of time, which is to go back and brute force the connections between B, C, and D, and then choose one, okay? Admit to yourself that you're going to lose a lot of time on this question. Because if you brute force, you will invariably go over 1 minute. Sometimes you'll go 2 minutes for that one question, and and if you're not at the level of like 1600 but like below, sometimes it'll go to like 3 minutes. It's way too much time. Way too much time. So when you do intentionally brute force, it damned well better be intentional. So 95% of the time, you should just circle it, even do like a temporary guess for any one of those answers, and come back to it later, okay? When you realize that you actually do have time, come back. But you have 4 other passages to read, man. You have 4 other passages to read. Do not invest 2-3 minutes on one question when you could be getting 2 questions or 3 questions or sometimes even 4 or 5 questions with the same amount of time, okay? Don't invest in such an expensive asset.
Came to Amina's inquiry about the gender of the child. Here we are on line 10, and just straightforwardly ask, is it a girl or a boy? So then we know the girls are the boy. And then we roll the window for the I don't detect any opinions or judgment or criticism from Sandeep here. This also has nothing to do with the exchange or the feedback. So here at line 30, we have the old lady's reaction to the gift. This is too much, she said, as if she's got the time. And that's a really strong thing, and I think that's probably the answer. But I also want to find, here at line 41, the son and the daughter-in-law emerge shyly from the anteroom. And then the feet touching happens immediately after. But I think that's the question. Yeah, that's not the question. That's the question asking about what happens after they come out of the anteroom. They're talking about the waiting specifically. And there's nothing that Sandeep says is critical about how they're waiting in the anteroom. What happens after they come out. That's a tricky one. The inquiry around the gender of the child didn't have anything to do with the gift giving or the foot touching. And in fact, it's only the old lady's reaction to the gift that reflects something that we already know Sandeep is critical of. Remember, line 55, the narrator says Sandeep had come to the conclusion that grown from that each after his own fashion. Since situations were turned into complex dramatic ones, not until then did everyone feel important and happy. And the only things in the story where adults are needlessly complicating interactions are the gift giving, which is choice C, and the foot touching, which happens after the events described in choice C. What I think is useful about this pair of questions is that answering question 7 helped refine my understanding of the passage, and not only that, it gave me a tool with which to answer question 8. Sometimes the way in which you answer one question can grant you an insight towards answering another one, or even going back and changing your answer if some new information is brought to light by the way you answer a different question.
I'm gonna throw out a quick comment for all the epistemology nerds out there. Okay, if you are not an epistemology nerd, I'm sorry. I'm just gonna use up 30 seconds of your time. Inductive reasoning is, in this case, what you would be using for brute forcing. Inductive reasoning is amazing for science. It is not amazing for SAT. In the SAT, you want to be using deductive reasoning, and you want to be primarily just like guessing on probabilities if you're not 100% sure. Just go with that. Just go with what you think the correct answer is. If you're trying to inductively get the correct answer by brute forcing A, B, C, D, you're going to lose way too much time. All right, moving on. Textual evidence. So sorry, I just zoned out a little bit just because I'm just like a little tired, but moving on. Simplify the question as much as you can using your own words. I don't know why the tips keep coming back. Like literally it's the same tip that comes back in different wording. So again, forget all the simplifying, forget all the rephrasing, forget all the taking control, forget all of that. Just answer the question in your own words. Just like if it's a question stem, just finish the sentence. Okay, complete that sentence in your own words. That's my tip. Yeah, this is just a rephrasing of the same, like, predict the answer concept. So, gonna move on. Oh yeah, the social change. This is the Nehru Gandhi thing. I guess this is the benefit of reading the questions in advance. So I've been generally skeptical of this idea that you should pre-read the questions, what they call surveying the questions in advance. But I mean, there is an undeniable benefit. If you've already read the questions in advance, then it does definitely like help you like know what to be looking for. The only problem is that I don't think it's worth spending a whole minute on it. That's up to you though, and I think the best way to really find out is by experimenting with both approaches. Just try it once, both ways, and then compare. Be like, which one was better for me? And just, there's only a week left until the SAT, so just do what works for you. There's no need to be perfectionistic about it. Boop. Nehru. Hang on, what's this? No. This is just talking about poverty, not generations, not India being changed. This is the example that sparks the discussion that suggests that India has experienced social change. This is the example of it, but that's not the actual discussion about the social change. Or I guess discussion is the wrong word since this is fiction, but observation. It sparks so this is the thing that is being observed, and this is the observation itself. So when this question says, what strongly suggests this social change, are you going to talk about the example, or are you going to talk about the observation itself? Go for the observation itself, not B. Okay, I know a lot of kids mix this up because it's like, oh, but that is the example of it. Yeah, yes, it is the example of it, but it's not the point itself. It's not the observation itself. It's not the discussion itself. It's not the argument itself. Okay, it's the example for the argument. It's the example for the observation. It's the example for the point. Okay, so make sure you are distinguishing absolutely clearly which one is supporting which. The example is supporting the argument. Anyway, let's see. I did say that I didn't want to comment on every single video, but it turns out that almost every single video I have something to say. So even though it's a little tiring for me, I'm going to read. I guess I'll keep doing it.
Which lines from the passage most strongly suggest that India has experienced social change? And then we've got a bunch of line citations. So what I want to do is boil this question down, rephrase it if possible, and really what I want to do with that is just 3 words: India, social change. That's all I'm looking for. And I want to return to the passage and just see what works, what applies where. I'm just going to look at those lines and see if there's
Hang on.
anything to do with social change in India. So.
I mean, just because there might be some people who are joining the stream later, I want to remind you guys of the same point. You don't want to go and scan India and social change. What you want to do is be like, what part of the passage was it that suggested anything about social change about India? And then using the map of your passage, right? If you have a map of the passage, this is the left column, this is the right column. Your brain, if you read it properly, your map should light up. It's like, oh, the bottom right, that's where it came up. So the bottom right should sort of light up at you, right? In your map of the passage. Or top left, it was at the very beginning of the passage, so it should like light up. That's where the social change came out. And when your map lights up, you should just go to that part of the map, okay? You shouldn't just start scanning over like completely blindly. If you are scanning blindly, what that means is that your map sucks. You have a really crappy map. So you need to actually start diagnosing yourself. Why does my map not light up? It's because I'm not reading it strategically enough. I'm not making predictions about what kinds of things would happen, and I'm not building those connections from the actual text to my predicted text, right? That's the problem. The problem is not scanning better, okay? No matter how well you scan, you're still going to be wasting time. The problem is your map sucks. Improve your map.
So, lines 31 and 32. There was the change system. Okay, 31, 2, 32. There was no need, she said. Oh, really, she said. This is too much, change system. Nothing to do with social change. Cross that right off. Lines 42 and 44. They both two elders. 42. Oh,
yeah. And now we're brute forcing. Now we're brute forcing. Brute forcing. This is not a good position to be in. Only brute force when you decide to brute force. Never brute force just because you're doing it automatically.
I don't know if that's necessarily about social change per se, but it is an element of tradition and social behavior. So let's cross it off right now. Lines 46 through 49. This was 46. This was half a token gesture for and half towards the new modern India. And it was secular India free of ritual and religion. And that feels very much about social change in India, right? The new modern India that no longer has as much ritual and religion. Not secular. That feels like a very strong candidate for writing something like that. But let's take a look at 62 to 65. It made two Spartus. 62 to 62. It made one remember that poverty meant displacement as well as lack. While austerity meant being poor and rude by the tradition and culture of Spartus, which transformed even lack into poverty and being. So I have the word tradition here. I think this is about what it means to be poor rather than social change in India. So I'm going to cross that out. So with D eliminated and A eliminated, I think we can pretty safely rule out B. Because all that has to do with tradition, it's not really about social change in India. So I'm going to select it. If compared to C, B is simply not as strong of a candidate. It does not meet our test. It doesn't match our test. But choice C absolutely does. Look at this. I'm just diving right into the text. And I have a 3-word test. India social change. And here we have a reference explicitly to a new India, a personified neighbor. And that is why I'm choosing C. So here's the thing about questions like these. When you know you're dealing with a citing textual evidence question, you help to simplify the test you're using when you're going back to the passage. In this case, it was, okay, I'm going to line about social change in India. I can go back to social change, India, social change, India, social change. Instead of scanning the choices. And it's a lot easier to do, right? Which lines the passage most strongly suggest that India has experienced social change. And do that 4 times. Simplify questions 10, rephrase it in your own words, and then use that as a test against choices. Keep it short so you can hold it in your mind so you can test it against each option.
I feel like the teacher says something that I absolutely agree with close to the end of this essay of this video. I should be fair, right? I should give him a chance to defend himself. Let me just go and read what he, let me just listen to what he said again one more time.
And that is why I'm choosing C. So here's the thing about questions like these. When you know you're dealing with a citing textual evidence question, it helps to simplify the test you're using when you're going back to the passage. In this case, it was, okay, I'm going to line about social change in India. I can go back to myself, social change, India, social change, India, social change. Instead of scanning the choices. And it's a lot easier to do, right? Which lines the passage most strongly suggest that India has experienced social change. And do that 4 times. Simplify questions 10, rephrase it in your own words, and then use that as a test against the choices. Keep it short so you can hold it in your mind so you can.
Oh, no, he's saying the exact opposite. Oh, no, I strongly disagree. He's saying it is easier to double check A and B and C and D and just do that 4 times by repeating to yourself, India social change, India social change, India social change, India social change 4 times, and just scanning it over and over. Yes, that is cognitively easier. It's easier on your brain, but easier on your brain doesn't give you a 1600. Your brain has to adapt to the difficulty of reading a text once and like absorbing 80% of that text on that first read. That's not an easy thing to do. But if your brain doesn't evolve to absorb the text on the first go, or absorb, maybe 80% is too high, but like absorb like 60-70% of the text on the first go, then you will never get a 1600. It just will never happen. So yes, cognitively it's easier to do A, B, C, D, just scan it every single time, but But cognitively, you don't want to choose the easier route. Now, that said, it literally is just 5 more days until the SAT, so you probably won't be able to do make dramatic improvements in your reading, but you should still be cognizant of this. You should be aware of this, that you can't, that's not how you get a 1600. Okay. I didn't realize how triggered I would be by Khan Academy. Dude, I think there's a lot of good stuff in there. And I love how it's formatted and engineered. I love this. I love how this website is built. But I'm honestly triggered by a lot of these tips. Dude, I don't know. Am I going to get canceled for this? Like, what the heck? All right. Words and phrases in context, 2 out of 2. Cover up the choices, go back. Yes. Same tips as before. Impression most nearly means I no longer remember this sentence, okay? When I don't remember the sentence, I look at this word impression and I'm just gonna look at A, B, C, D. I know a lot of kids do that, don't do that. Don't look at A, B, C, D. It's gonna bias you, it's gonna confuse you, it's gonna make you imagine definitions that aren't actually there. It's gonna make you much more confused, okay? Your thinking will not be clear if you look at the answers first. When you don't remember that sentence, go back and reread that sentence. Impression most nearly means. And this is actually a little unusual that they don't give you the line references. So they almost always will give you the line reference. So I'm looking for the impression, and here I found it. But that's not normally how the SAT asks you, okay? They'll always, like 90, I think 100% of the times they'll give you the actual line reference. Despite its bareness, the impression it gave. Okay, so notice what I just did. I stopped myself, okay? Why did I stop myself? Can you guess? Think about it. I stopped myself. I didn't finish the sentence. I stopped myself because I realized I don't know what the word it is referring to. And the reason I don't know what the word it or its, okay, is referring to, this pronoun or these pronouns, is because I jumped right back into the middle of the paragraph totally cold. I no longer remember what this context is, okay? So, weirdly enough, I actually stopped myself reading halfway through the sentence, and then my eyes will naturally just go up to remind myself of where I'm, my eyes are naturally scanning upwards for the antecedent of this pronoun, okay, for the thing that the pronoun is referring to. A single blue fluorescent tube was burning on the wall. It was not a big room. Despite its bareness, it's referring to the room. The room is not big. The room has only decorated with literally a big tube. It's a very bare room. Nevertheless, it has this impression. What is this impression? This impression of austerity, not poverty. Not poverty. So this is an interestingly mature 10-year-old, right? He's making these observations right now. Almost unrealistically mature 10-year-old. But we got this impression that it is giving you know what, let's just reuse that word from earlier. The vibe it gave, right? The vibe it gives, okay? The appearance it gives. The belief it gives, the imitation it gives, the recollection it gives. No, those are really strange. The vibe it gives, the appearance it has, the appearance it gives. All right, and that is correct. So I'm 9 for 9 right now. Moving on. Words and phrases, context. Or sorry, I'm 10 for 10 right now. So
as used in line 61, impression most nearly means blank. This is a vocabulary and context question. What I want to do is go visit that word in context and try to figure out what I think impression means. Then I'm going to take impression, cross out, write it here, whatever it is, and then test that against the choices. So let's go find line 61. During survey that I wrote, question 10 in the sidebar here, and so now I can zoom right to context. Let's read here. Despite its bareness, it gave the room. Despite its bareness, the impression it gave was of austerity rather than poverty. So what I want to do with impression is I want to basically come up with my own definition for the word. And I don't know, let's talk about the way a room looks. I might say picture, but I think that I want to kind of go with like feeling. So let's go back to question. Right, feeling here. Like I look at the way it makes a person feel, and let's go to the choices we got. Right, so what we want to do is test our own definition, feeling, against the answer choices, and see which one makes the most sense. Okay, so as using line 61, feeling most means appearance, no, doesn't match. Most means belief. Belief kind of matches feeling, but doesn't really work for me. Let's go to one for now. Imitation, that's not feeling, and recollection, that's memory. Neither of these don't make a ton of sense to me, but between belief. Okay, there is one. Even though I agree with the overall approach, there's one little qualifier I want to make. This teacher tends to fixate on his own prediction, which was the word feeling,
And I think if you are, and which is not bad by itself, as long as you are, that you still have the sort of the imprint of the original sentence in your brain. What I mean by that is the original sentence has a grammatical structure. In this grammatical structure, it says, let me find it again. The room is giving an impression of austerity, okay? I'm reformulating the subject and verb order, but basically it's still the same thing. The room is giving the impression of austerity. So I should have that grammatical little unit impressed, like indented into my brain. The room is giving the blank of austerity. The room is giving the vibe of austerity. The room is giving the feeling of austerity. The room is giving off the appearance of austerity, right? You should have that sort of imprint in your head. If you don't have that imprint in your head and all you're thinking is feeling, you will go astray. You will lose track. So even though I agree with the general approach, and I said that actually before, like I think question 3 or 4 or something like that when it first came out, I completely agree with that approach. What's kind of being left out in this explanation right now in this video that I'm watching is that you shouldn't only be looking at the word feeling, which is your random prediction, right? Which sometimes students come up with pretty bad predictions. You know, sometimes you shouldn't trust your own prediction 100%. So what you should do is trust that phrase within that full grammatical unit, okay? It gives the feeling of austerity, right? Remember that whole phrase, not just that word feeling only. It gives the feeling of austerity, it gives the appearance of austerity. Have the grammatical structure imprinted into your brain.
Belief and appearance neither of those exactly match feeling. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the second method for vocabulary context questions and plug these words back into the context. So appearance and belief. It was not a big room. Despite its fairness, the appearance it gave was
interesting. He goes back and he does process elimination. He goes back and then now he sticks it into the original grammatical context. So I just talked about that imprint of the grammatical structure, right? If you have the imprint in this grammatical structure, then you don't have to do this process elimination in the first place. Okay, you can just do it all in one step. However, if having the imprint of that grammatical structure is really hard for you, then yeah, it's totally valid to just go through it once, process elimination, and then go and feed it back into the original grammatical context. I would just say that if you're losing time on vocabulary and context questions because you're doing like this 2-step version rather than the 1-step version that I'm telling you about, then you might have to be a little bit more realistic about getting that 1600 or the 800 on the EBRW. It's going to take you a little bit more effort. So that's just my little commentary there.
It was austerity rather than poverty. That sounds right. It was not a room despite fairness. The belief it gave was austerity rather than poverty. And that doesn't make the same kind of sense. Honestly, I think my initial instinct of picture was right. It really is about the visual impression as a verb. So appearance is right. Okay, so my model first here is 2 methods of solving a words and phrases context question. First, you cross out the word in the passage and come up with your own substitute. And then see if that substitution, that prediction, has a match in the choices. Not yet whether you for sure can describe based on context, but then if you still are left with other choices, then go back and plug those choices into the text, sub out the word you're trying to find, and see what fits best in the subject. And that is my initial idea that impression and picture in the context was right. So, useful lesson in trusting your gut.
I just thought of some very clickbaity title for a future video when I'm not too lazy to actually edit a video. But basically, I've realized why you shouldn't follow Khan Academy's advice on the EBRW. Is basically the clickbait that I think I'm gonna have to use. Social science passage. Let's see. It's 520. Yeah, I mean, I can at least do 40 minutes. So I just don't think I'll be able to finish in 40 minutes. That's the only thing that's kind of awkward about it right now, but I should be able to do it in 40 minutes. I should be able to do some in 40 minutes, so let's go into it. Well, before, just gonna double check. Anyone asking any questions? Any questions just generally before I move right into social science or social studies or whatever the heck that section is? Social science. You know what? Social sciences, I think, is a little unnatural to go right into. I think it might be better to go with the sort of historical passage. Yeah, the history passage. Just because I feel like the approach for social science and science are more similar to each other. So I want to do those together. An approach for literature. No, approach for literature and history are actually not that similar with each other. And now that I think about it, history tends to be the hardest one. It's the one that's closest to AP Lang, like AP language, English language, and composition. So, you know what? I will save history for last. Let's go into social science. "11 videos. Let's get started. Here's the passage. The survey step and the active reading step." Okay, so yesterday, I watched the videos first, and then I read the passage by listening, like watching the videos. And I found that to be incredibly distracting. So instead, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna read it first, okay? I'm gonna read it first, and I'm gonna give you my commentary. And you're gonna notice how I read when I don't do that little survey step. And you'll notice some of the flaws in my thinking. You'll notice it because when I don't do a survey, then I'm gonna make some wrong predictions. It definitely will happen. So pay attention to the kinds of thoughts that I have and compare it to the kinds of thoughts that you have when you're reading a passage. And ask yourself, which habit of thinking is better for me, okay? If the thing that you're already doing is better for you, then just stick with it. You only have like 5 more days. Stick with it. Don't experiment too much. But if the way that I'm thinking as I read seems like it could be more effective for you, then go and experiment on it today or tomorrow after watching this video. Okay, so let's open up this passage. I'll do the PDF versions because I think that's a little more natural, and also because the PDF version allows me to have a map, okay? So what I mean by map, I've already said this multiple times, so basically, is it like the top left? Is it the bottom left? Is it the top right? Or is it the bottom right where the idea that I'm looking for came out, right? I want to be able to build that map in a way that's similar to the real test. Okay, so I'll zoom in, which is a little unnatural, right? It's a little awkward to read zoomed in like this, but I want to make it a little easier for you to know where I am, okay, as I'm reading. So this is extremely zoomed in, but at least you can follow and kind of notice where my eyes are. All right, here we go. Perfect blurb. I'm not going to time myself. If you do want to watch me do a timed version of this, I do actually do timed takes of the test while explaining. It's like insanely difficult, and I make a lot of mistakes when I do it that way. But if there's a lot of people who are interested in watching me do like a timed version of this, I'll do that in the future, but not in this video. Okay, so I love this blurb. It's so easy to work with because what's going to happen is probably there's going to be more than one research that comes out, and they're going to be on both sides. And when I say both sides, it means some research is going to suggest that it's not, economics can't be ethical, and some research is going to suggest that economics can be ethical. And right now, given the structure of that question, this Ian, or is it Lane? No, it's this Ian King guy, this King author, he's probably going to be on the side of economics being ethical. Okay? Now, these are predictions that I'm making confidently? Hell no, I'm not confident. But it's the kind of thing that sort of gives me a sort of route to the ending, right? I could be totally, absolutely, totally wrong, right? But at least it gives me a sort of thing to imagine, to compare against, like a simulated version of the passage versus the real passage. And by comparing the simulation with the real thing, I start to get a very, very good map of what the real passage is. Okay. Now, by the way, if you are kind of bad at these science passages, one tip that I can give, I don't actually always use this tip because I'm pretty confident in my readings, but one tip I can give is just go straight to the last paragraph. Usually it's actually like the last bit of the second to last paragraph and the last paragraph itself. Okay, this does make you lose a little bit of time because you're kind of, because there's this, you're doing a gamble. Sometimes you don't actually find the answer you're looking for, even though you spend like 20 to 30 seconds just like looking for it here. But sometimes your reading is just not up to it's just not up to par. So in that case, you sometimes have to use these little tricks to make it a little easier on yourself cognitively, on your brain, to know what you're looking for. So here, most people, even economists, now accept that this economic man is a fiction. We behave like a herd. We fear losses. Okay, now, here I have a lot of background information. I already know a lot about economics, so this is going to help me a lot. Okay, for the purpose of this video, I will just explain to you what I know. Basically, traditional economics has always assumed that people are purely rational actors as a simplification procedure. Okay, but now more recent economics, especially, I think the revolution began in the 90s. I think, where younger economists would rise up and be like, yo, our models make no freaking sense. If people don't act like this, we have to think about the psychology of it as well. So that's why we need to have some sort of understanding of the quirkiness of people. We can't just go for purely rational analyses, right? So that whole thing happened, I think, starting the 1990s and became really pretty much prominent by the 2000s. So we have a new wave of behavioral economists, aided by neuroscientists, who are trying to sort of merge, like sort of synthesize psychology and economics together. Yeah. I just know that background. So now I'm still trying to answer the question for myself. Which side is this Ian King guy going to land on? Is he going to land on the side of economics being ethical or not? And so I'm going to jump over here because I see the word ethics. Psychology can help us understand why we react to injustice with disgust, which means that this new revolutionary psychology influenced science of human behavior might actually help us define our ethics, which means, yes, my prediction was correct. This Ian King isn't 100% confident that the answer is yes. Okay, he's not 100% confident, but that's what he's interested in. He's interested in the possibility that it probably, possibly, maybe could be ethical. So that's my sort of confirmation of my original prediction. Okay, but I've also confirmed one other thing, which is that part of my prediction was wrong. My prediction was that there's going to be multiple studies that come out, and they're going to be on both sides. If anything, it sounds like this Ian King guy is not gonna compare multiple studies. What he's doing is he's comparing various eras within economics. He's comparing traditional economics to the newer economics that's coming out, and then suggesting a shift towards how that might affect our thinking about morality. Okay, so I've confirmed two things. I've confirmed that Ian King is on the is kind of curious about the possibility. He's sort of positive that it might be able to be ethical, but also that my original prediction was wrong. That actually it's not about multiple studies. It's probably more about like the historical progression of economics as a field. Okay, now me explaining this to you took me like more than 5 minutes. It took me a long time, but because of the sort of density of all these thoughts in my head, me actually doing this probably would have taken me less than a minute. If I was like, well caffeinated, alert, well slept and everything, maybe even like less than 30 seconds, maybe even. But don't hold me to that, I'm not sure. But it would have been much faster if I had done this without having to explain it all. Okay. Now let's go. Recent debates. I like this word recent because it suggests that it wasn't always the case. Have rediscovered the question. Not just profits or efficacy, but about ethics. Okay, just because I'm remembering this word ethic. It's a major word. Personal choice equals ethical. Okay, that's one position. Personal choice is ethical. Others are talking about corporate responsibility, social responsibility. We need a better definition, sure. Okay, so far we're pretty neutral, just waiting for something to happen. This is just a survey of different opinions. Now we're trying to define with some clarity what ethics means. There are different views, sure. Adam Smith's is just one view. Now, right now, I don't have this is not my iPad, this is my laptop, so it's hard for me to annotate for you, but this would just be one position, okay? All of this is one position. So it looks like all of this is all one position. It seems like all of this is one position. And then Aristotle, it seems like this is a different position, okay? So when I do this, I tend to circle Adam Smith, and then I keep waiting for the second position to come out, right? And why am I waiting for multiple positions? Because of this word views. This word views. Okay, so let me just go through the first position. Yes, cool. Interesting stuff. He justifies selfishness. Yeah. This is actually a really confusing sentence to me. How are these planners using the empathizing approach? But seeking an outcome that makes the person as well off as possible. But whatever. I'm gonna if I were really reading this in real time, I would put a question mark here, and the question mark over here would just remind me that I should not be overly confident about what I remember about this part. I should come back and double check if necessary. Don't focus on consequences. Okay, so judging consequences is the simplified summary of the Adam Smith position, the consequentialism position, okay? That's the Adam Smith position. So now we have a contrast. This is the second one. So if I were really reading this, I would circle this, okay? If I were doing this on the iPad, I would circle this. Because now I'm comparing Smith and Aristotle. It's about having character. It's not consequentialism. It's like how you actually do it. But this is hard to teach. Ooh. This is the thought that I would have if I were forced to explain it in real time. On the one hand, I feel like King isn't super sympathetic to Adam Smith. Maybe he is, I'm not sure. Okay? But on the other hand, Aristotle's philosophy is hard. So now maybe what's going to happen is we're going to talk about the psychology revolution, the behavioral sciences revolution in economics that will fix this difficulty. Okay? Fix this difficulty that Aristotle faces with this idea of the character of a person. Maybe. That's a prediction. I might be wrong. Okay. Yeah. This is actually pretty interesting reading. There is yet another. Okay. Don't focus on character, don't focus on consequences, focus on the actions. Some actions are right, some actions are wrong. For example, we should buy fair trade goods. We shouldn't lie in advertisements. Basically, do's and don'ts, commandments. That's a great word for it. Commandments. If anything, I would probably circle the word commandments here. Okay, so I would have, and then I might even circle the word consequences. I might even circle, I mean, obviously when you're doing this in real time, I'm not going to think about it. I'm just going to circle whatever the heck I want to circle. I would circle consequences and characters and commandments, because those are all C words. They're all nicely alliterative, helps them remember. It's an interesting edge case. I might put a question mark next to it because I don't 100% process all the implications of that example. But yeah, it's an interesting example. Dilemmas arise when we're pulled in three different directions. For example, buying might have good consequences, be virtuous, and also be the right way to act in a flawed market. Oh, I completely missed this word but. Clashes are not inevitable, okay? Yeah, if you're thinking about all three of these things, it might be confusing, but, there are some common sense agreements. Ethical economics is still possible. Interesting. So my revised prediction was still wrong. Okay, the whole thing about the traditional economics to revolutionary economics, like that whole structure was what I was imagining, but that's not the actual structure we got. But notice that because I keep correcting my prediction as I go, it makes me way more engaged with the passage itself. It makes me much more, and I guarantee you I'm going to remember this passage pretty well by the time I go into the questions. Even if I have to do all the questions tomorrow, I think I'm going to remember it pretty well. So this is the historical bit about the history of the field. The model of man is a parody. Most people accept this as a fiction. We have fears and stuff like that. So these quirks, wow, this actually becomes kind of hard to, I feel like this might be hard for some people to understand if they're not comfortable with economics. Okay, but moving on. Is trying to understand our psychology, which might mean that the relatively new science of human behavior might also define ethics for us. It's kind of an interesting argument to make, which I don't think has a lot of it's not a lot of defense there. There's not a lot of evidence, just suggestions. All right. Regular coffee profits compared to fair trade coffee profits in Tanzania. So I just want to say one thing. When I read this graph, I want to be connecting it directly to the passage. So when I see regular coffee profits, okay, over here, and then fair trade coffee profits over here, I want to see something that has some bearing on ethics. And so I want to know, what is the cost? In this case, we're talking about profits, okay? What is the cost of an ethical, what is the profit level of an ethical thing, which fair trade coffee is supposed to be? And it's much higher. And my question is, does that make sense? And I guess it makes some sense because, if you're not being as ethical, you might be cutting costs by using slaves, for example. That would be a bad way of cutting costs. Okay, but on the other hand, I also noticed this extremely flat thing, which doesn't seem very natural. It does seem a little unusual, and it does feel like there's a lot of missing opportunity in between these two lines. Okay, so those are my initial thoughts on that graph. I'm looking at some questions. Do you bubble in all at the end? How long does it take? All at the end, all at the end, all at the end. You mean at the end of the passage, or do you mean at the end of the test? Oh, my camera's all weird. My face was not even captured. If you mean by the end of the test, I do not. I actually bubble in one question at a time. I bubble in one question at a time just as I answer. I think it's more defensible to do one passage at a time. I would be very nervous about doing it all at the end of the test, just because if you're good at time management, then there's no problem. But if you are bad at time management, like if your time management ever gets messed up, then what happens is you're taking a huge gamble where, like, even though you got the right answer, you might just not have the time to fill in the bubbles, and then you might get yelled at by the proctor for filling in the bubbles, and that's just like a level of additional stress that I don't want to deal with personally. So I will not bubble it personally at the end of the test. I do think, though, that's a habit that people kind of develop over years, though. So because it is a habit that you may or may not have, I kind of think for when you only have like 5 days left before the real test, I wouldn't focus so much on changing that habit. But maybe you should try a different way of doing it once and see if it just feels automatically better for you. Because if it doesn't feel better for you, then just forget it. You only have 5 days. You can't do like a perfectly rational analysis of exactly the right way of doing it. You can only go with your current gut feeling. So I would suggest just experimenting with it maybe once or twice in the next day or two, and then just sticking with the one that feels the best at the moment. I know it's not a perfectly rational way of approaching it, but sometimes being perfectly rational just takes way too much time. So yeah, hopefully that answers your questions. If you have further questions, I'll come back to the questions in a moment. Yeah, so I just read that whole passage. It took me some time. What I'll do now is I'll do the survey step and the active reading step and see what the guy says. I suspect it'll be pretty similar. It'll be pretty similar to what I saw yesterday. So I might be skipping around real quick.
This is a social science passage on the reading section of the SAT. Let's do a quick survey step for this passage. What this means is I'm going to dash through the questions and mark them up where relevant, and this will inform my approach in the active reading, which will be another video. Doing this survey is a time management strategy. Looking at questions as possible via search display on a passage like this. So for example, if you identify a vocabulary context question, I say you can answer that question as soon as you can. I know my other options like that. This is going to be a quick step. You want to figure out what we should be reading for and move on. I'm asking myself, can I do this now if I had to, or will I have to do this later? So our strategy here is first we're going to read the blurb about the passage, and then we're going to see the questions for targets, and now passage and then during the active reading step we tackle the passage and take chunks, doing questions as you go. But now let's start reading the blurb, and let's just start here, right? This passage is from beginning mechanic, economics, ethical. The passage is all about that question, economics, ethical. So with that blurb in our heads, let's start going through the questions themselves. Question 1, the main purpose of the passage is to I got the whole passage done, I can't do it right now. Question 2, in the passage you anticipate which of the following objections criticizing the ethics of free markets. So question 1, what are the arguments of the passage? I'll go for objections to criticizing the ethics of free markets. Right, question 3, which provides best evidence to answer the question provides this for question 2. We talk about each of the answers to question 2 will be in one of these 4 places, and line 2, question 2, I'm going to do the same time. Question 4, as you do line 6 in race, most near means, right? So this is a vocabulary question. Let's say, how do you use this right now? So for line 6 in race, probably pass it. Right now, just market. Yeah, I say if I want to read line 4, read line ahead, and then use my vocabulary to answer it. But I'll get those strategies later. For now, all I want to do is just mark it and move on. Question 5. So main purpose of the 5th paragraph is do blank. This is a safe question. We'll read the entire paragraph. Right, so I'll mark that paragraph. I can answer this question after I read this paragraph. Using line 49, flashes, most near means, right? That's another vocabulary question. We want to do that right now during this step. But I'll just mark word flashes line 49 for now. I'll do passage. 50, 49, there's flashes, right? And now we're on question 7, which supports the time around shared by different approaches to ethics passage. So this question is textual evidence support, but I feel like I'm going to have a passage on the whole passage. I'm going to use one. Question 8, the main idea of the final paragraph is that blank. Right, and I'm just asking what's the final paragraph about? Question 9, data in the graph. How copy the most strongly supported the following statements. So the graph, right? The graph, cool. This question is asking what's the graph? Tell us. Another question about just the graph and not the graph.
Okay, I think I'm done with this. Let's just see if he says anything at the very end.
Data in the graph provides most support for which idea in passage. Right, so this means you're going to have to understand the ideas that play in passage before you can take this on. It's not just the data, it's the data and the ideas in passage. So that's 4 out of 11 questions that if you need to write up some quick figures, you can do that right now. And just importantly, a little bit questions first. Identify some ideas I'll look for in an active reading step. This is the survey step, and next we'll see model active reading. Good luck there. You got this.
I don't want to repeat myself too much. I basically said what I said yesterday. I continue to remain skeptical about the use of time up front on this. It's not what I do when I get perfect scores. So I remain skeptical. I think it might be interesting content later on, maybe Wednesday or Thursday, after I get through a lot of the Khan Academy material, to actually try it for myself and then to give an updated impression of this approach. But I'm highly skeptical. I do think, but I do think there's one major benefit, okay, which is psychologically, when you have 11 questions and you already, when you look at the passage and you psychologically you're daunted, you're kind of scared of the passage, then doing this makes the passage feel probably more approachable, like less scary. It reduces the psychological terror of doing that passage. In that case, I think I think it might be worth it. It might be worth that minute up front to just reduce your psychological fear, because the test is not a purely rational exercise. It is a psychological game, and making yourself comfortable is actually super important. So if this makes you feel more comfortable while taking the test, I wouldn't blame you whatsoever for doing it. It's just that when I read the passage, I just don't tend to be daunted that way. I don't tend to be overwhelmed by the passages that way. So I would just never do it for myself personally. At least that's my reasoning so far. We'll see if I can update my reasoning in the future. Maybe my reasoning will change. But so far, from my experience, I just don't think it's a very natural way of solving the questions. All right, no questions so far, so I'm going to keep moving. Hang on, we like to.
If you're just joining me, we're about to start the active reading step.
I wonder if this is a different teacher. I mean, the voice sounds very similar, but like this language feels different. Mark up the passage to keep track of the most important ideas. I mean, it's all true. Okay, one comment, the only comment I would make about this sentence, okay, is sometimes I see kids taking this the wrong way, where they feel like they have to have this perfect sentence for every single paragraph. But some paragraphs are long and some paragraphs are short. Doesn't mean you have to have only one sentence for doesn't mean you have to have one sentence for a very long paragraph, and doesn't mean you have to have one sentence each for every single short paragraph, and also it doesn't have to even be a perfect sentence, you don't have to overdo this. So I think sum up in our own words. I don't disagree with those words. Summing things up in your own words is a good thing, but don't be overly fixated on like having a perfect sentence by paragraph sentence outline. Don't be overly fixated on that. Just have a running simulation of what you think the passage will be about, and correct your simulation as you go. If you do that, you're going to have a pretty good map of the passage.
Of this passage, as we go through the SQ3R method. So in the previous video, we surveyed the questions, we surveyed the passage, we asked ourselves, what is the question that this passage is trying to answer? Right there in the blurb, the title of the passage, and example. Now it's time for the R's. Reading, reciting, and
3.5.
So I speak to the passage and I read it aloud to you. I'm also going to be reciting back the ideas that are presented in the passage in your own words. This is a very powerful technique, because when you synthesize an idea from the passage, when you say it in your own words, when you recite it, you're demonstrating your understanding of it. So as we go through this passage, I'm going to be circling claims, arguments, big ideas. In the first step in the circle, I already circled a couple of names. Here I'm going to be circling claims made by the author. I'm going to be circling contrast words, conjunctions like but or yet, or adverbs like instead, or however. I'm going to focus on those, see where the hinges of this argument are and where things pivot. All right, so let's get going. Let's read paragraph 1. Recent debates about the economy have rediscovered the question, is that right? Where right means more than just profits or efficiency. Okay.
Before we go right into the meat of this way of annotation, I would say there's one. I'm going to share what I'm scared of. What I'm scared of is the possibility that this annotation system is overly complicated, and that you have to think about your annotations before even doing the annotation. For example, I have to circle all the claims. First of all, circling a whole claim could, like mechanically speaking, just making that circle is kind of a painful experience. I mean, it's because you're circling like a sentence, right? That's really awkward and takes too much time, I would say. So I have that sort of concern. But apart from that, at least in my experience when I was in high school, I remember hearing advice like this and then being like, I need to circle the claims. And then I would ask myself, hey, is this a claim? Is this not a claim? Questioning yourself like that is a complete waste of time. You don't have the time to debate with yourself whether this is a claim or not. That's not how you should be spending the time in a real test, right? That's not. And by the way, I got an 800 on the reading when I took the SAT back in the day. So my process wasn't terrible, but doubting yourself like that, I don't think is the right use of your time. It's definitely I don't think it's the most effective use of your time. So my fear is that the system might be a little too complicated. Now let's actually see if my fears are justified or not.
Okay, so this is basically a profit sentence of the passage. It's reintroducing the idea of ethics into business. Basically, what we're talking about profits or efficiency here is doing business right more than just making money or doing your work efficiently. Move on to paragraph 2. Some argue that because the free market allows for personal choice, they're already ethical. Well, there's an argument right there. I'm going to flag it. Let me say that back. Because you can make choices in a free market, this argument is saying you are free to make ethical choices. Others have accepted the ethical critique and embrace corporate social responsibility. Now, see that underlined embrace. And I have question 4 here is if it's essay, I would hop right over to question 4 and answer the question. This is how embrace would be used in context. But I'm not going to do that. So if you have one claim here, free market are already ethical. We have another claim here, which is that corporate social responsibility is a counterpoint against the idea that free markets are already ethical. But before we can label any market outcome as immoral or sneer at economists who try to price being ethical, we need to be clear on what we're talking about. So before we go any further, let's get some definitions. What I think the author is trying to say. Now, I will note that what I'm doing here, making these annotations, is not something that, as of this video, you can currently do in our product. So as you are doing practice, if you feel need to note something down, people have had a paper and a pencil and next to your device. Line 10, paragraph 3. There are different views on where ethics should apply when someone makes an economic decision. Alright, so let's keep a look out for what those different views might be. The paragraph is saying different ideas clashing with each other. Consider Adam Smith, widely regarded as the founder of modern economics. He was a moral philosopher who believed sympathy for others was the basis for ethics. We call it empathy nowadays. Alright, we're talking about moral philosophy, we're talking about sympathy and empathy. And there are a lot of complex ideas. But I will say you don't have to have outside knowledge of Adam Smith or economics or moral philosophy in order to do well on the SAT. Everything you need to do well on this passage is contained within this passage. And more importantly, it's contained within you. Yeah. All we need to do is go through this passage and restate it in our own words and that gives us control over it. You don't scare me. Passage like this that I know a little about. Back to the passage.
Oh, is this Khan himself? That's kind of interesting. I forgot his name. Sal Khan. I like know his face for some reason, but like not even his name. What he's saying right now, what the teacher is saying right now, I just want to put a check mark on it. Yeah, man. Don't be too scared of the content. It helps if you have background knowledge because it gives you more confidence. But even though you might not have the background knowledge, and so therefore your confidence level will get a little lower, don't let the fact that you're starting with kind of medium or to medium low confidence drop your confidence even further. Some people have real bad psychological management of themselves, and their confidence just keeps dropping over time. Don't let that happen to you, okay? Just be like, hey, the SAT is not going to be that mean to me, okay? I just need to focus on textual reading of this idea. Like, are these ideas supported by the text? Just focus on the sort of logical aspects of it, and you'll be able to get most of those questions right. Like all of the questions right, as long as your vocabulary is up to snuff. Is that the right idiom? Suddenly, I'm forgetting my idioms. Okay, as long as your vocabulary is at the level that it should be at, even if you don't know the ideas, you'll be good.
So as the moral philosopher believes sympathy for others was the basis for ethics. We call it empathy nowadays. Underlying empathy is important. But one of his key insights in Wealth of Nations, this book, was that acting on this empathy could be counterproductive. Interesting. He observed people becoming better off when they put their own empathy aside and interacted in a self-interested way. That does seem kind of counterintuitive. Let's keep reading. Smith justifies selfish behavior by the outcome. Whenever planners use cost-benefit analysis to justify a new railway line, or someone retrains to give earning power, or shopper buys one get one free, they're using the same approach, empathizing with someone and seeking an outcome that makes that person as well as possible. Although the person they're empathizing with may well be themselves in the future. Okay, so let me start out. It seems like Smith is saying that greed is good. I'm going to put that in the margin. Greed is good. Because if you act in your own self-interest, it ends up benefiting other people anyway. So if a city planner is trying to be as self-interested as possible to justify building a railway line, eventually that will benefit people to use that train. Or if someone retrains in order to maintain or get a higher salary, that's better for the marketplace at large, because that means that their contribution to the workplace is more efficient or better somehow. So that's what Smith is saying. Greed is good, has societal benefits when individual people act in their own self-interest. Next paragraph. Instead of judging consequences. Okay, so Smith judged consequences. So looking at counterpoint is a hinge of the article. Aristotle said ethics was about acting by character, displaying virtues like courage and honesty.
It's interesting how he kind of skipped over the part that I thought that I was a little bit confused by, that I would put a question mark on. I didn't really hear the explanation for my question, but just moving on.
So Aristotle was saying it's not that greed is good, it's the thought that counts. Let's keep reading at line 28. It is a view put into practice when business leaders are chosen for their good character. But it is a hard philosophy to teach just how much loyalty you should show to a manufacturer that keeps losing money. So too little and greed is good for a there's our emphasis there. Too much and you're wasting money on unproductive capital. So here the author is questioning whether or not loyalty, for example, as a virtue is one that is smart to maintain in business. If you have too little loyalty, you're basically evil, right? Greed is good for a and too much loyalty and you might end up making bad business decisions. Let's continue line 33. Aristotle thought there was a golden mean between the two extremes, an ideal middle within the two extremes, and finding it was a matter of fine judgment. But if ethics is about character, it's not clear what those characteristics should be. So here I think the author's saying.
So I did want to say something that I forgot to say basically in my first read, but the problem with Aristotle's virtue ethics, his character ethics, is that it's just a little, it's just a little too gray. It's not black or white. You got to be in the middle. Like, how much loyalty should you be showing? If you're too loyal, then you're just you're being gypped. If you're not loyal enough, then you're being greedy. It's just too gray. Now, obviously, real life is gray, but from an economic standpoint, it's too gray.
The author's trying to complicate Aristotle's idea. It's the thought that counts, it's character values that contribute to ethics. Which are those characteristics? Which are those virtues? Continue on at line 38. There's yet another approach. So now we have, I would say, a third claim to ethics. So far we've got Adam Smith, which is good. We've got Aristotle, which is the thought that counts. Here comes idea number 3. Instead of reading ethics in character or consequences of actions, we can focus on our actions themselves. So let's say that in other words. So instead of consequences, which Adam Smith's ends justify means 3 is good ideology, and instead of Aristotle's virtue focus, it's a thought account theology. His third one is about the means by which something is accomplished, like the way in which we do something, focusing on the actions themselves. So from this perspective, some things are right, some wrong. We should, by fair trade goods, we shouldn't tell lies and advertise. Ethics becomes a list of amendments, a catalog of do's and don'ts. When a finance official refuses to devalue currency because they have promised not to, they're defining ethics this way. According to this approach, devaluation can still be bad, even if it would make everybody better off. So in this paragraph, I'm going to recite what I think the point of it was, which is to say the means are important. So focus on actions. Move on to paragraph 6. And actually, hold on. So if you remember from our survey step, question 5 was about the content of paragraph 5. What's the main point of paragraph 5? We want to say, we can pop over and answer that question right now. But instead, let's move on to the next paragraph.
So I realize I'm not being very sharp with with the commentary I should be giving, but it's what I'm about to say is actually not that complicated. So I kind of missed my timing, but I'll just say it. Notice how the teacher here writes actual words out loud, like actual words in full. You want to be ruthless with your time management. So I would say if you can even shave off a couple seconds by not writing full sentences, full words. Don't write full words. Have your own little acronyms. Back in the day, for actions, for example, I used to say AXN. AXN. For me, AXN was actions. So that made it simpler. All INGs. Something ING, I used to have like a little quick symbol that would mean ING to me, right? I wouldn't write ING because that's actually a lot of movement for like 3 letters that are extremely common. So INGs, I would do one quick, it kind of looks like a cursive J kind of is like this thing I had, but it would be my sort of shorthand for ING. Don't write full words if you can avoid it. Now, obviously, in the next 5 days, it might be hard for you to kind of develop your own shorthand, but everyone should develop their own shorthand to avoid writing full words because it will waste too much time. In the not this one time, but when you sum it all up together, it wastes too much time as a whole. That said, there's an even better approach. Remember what I said? What are the 3 words that I said I would have circled? I would have circled character, consequences, and commandments. If I circle those 3 words, the beautiful thing about a circle rather than an underline is that a circle, because of its shape, has this effect of drawing your eyes to it. Okay, underlines also draw your eyes to it, but a circle, I think biologically and evolutionarily, we're sort of drawn to circles as human beings, as animals, right? We like circles. So if you circle those 3 words, you can rest assured that when you're going through the questions and you're looking for that one idea again, because your map kind of went off, your map went a little weird and you kind of lost your route. You can rest assured that you'll be able to find your place again because of those circles. So just circle, if you can avoid writing words altogether by just circling the key word that sort of stands in for all those ideas for you, then yeah, you would save even more time by doing that. So I don't tend to underline based on what I think is a logical structure. When I think of annotations, I try to make it as dumb as possible for me because I don't want to have to use my brain to just decide whether to underline or circle something. I try to only ask myself, do I want to see this again later on? Right? Do I want to have a reminder of this part later on? If I maybe do, then I still underline it, right? And if I think it's a key idea, then I circle it. That's all. That's all I do. Now, I also use triangles for a separate reason, but right now I just want to drive in this point. The annotation itself should be as easy as possible and time efficient as possible. Okay? You shouldn't have to overly think about it. Gregory, thank you for the quick update. Yeah, it's all good.
What's the main point of paragraph 5? We want to say, we can pop over and answer that question right now. But instead, let's move on to the next paragraph. Many world lines use 3 versions, both in different directions. But clashes are not identical. Clashes are underlined in the previous video. We could again go over the questions and answer that. I'm not going to do here. I'm just so proactive reading, I pulled out 3 different strands of argument. The passage very kindly has agreed with us that there are 3 different arguments here. The clashes are not identical between those 3 ideas. So there's a point at which Aristotle, Adam Smith, and focus on actions in all the 3. Take fair trade coffee. And we know from our earlier survey that fair coffee is like the graph is illustrating this idea. So fair trade coffee is sold with certification that indicates that farmers and workers who use it will pay a fair wage. For example, buying it might have good consequences, be virtuous, and also be the right way to act in the law market. Good consequences, that's Adam Smith. Be virtuous, that's Aristotle. Be the right way to act, that's the ideology from paragraph of focus on actions. Common ground like this suggests that even without agreeing on where ethical applies, ethical economics is still possible. So even though there are 3 different ideas intentionally each other about what ethical economics is, there are still places in the real world where all 3 of those ideas exist in harmony. That's the point line 57. Whenever we feel queasy about perfect competitive market, the problem is often rooted in a conception of people. The model of man, the human, on which classical economics is based, and rational and self-being is a parody, as John Stuart Mill, the philosopher pioneered the model accepted.
You know what happened? I just sort of zoned out. Let me just double check this explanation here to make sure. You know what it is? It's because I was explaining something that was like kind of before, and now I'm losing track of what this area is.
What's the main point of paragraph 5? I'm going to say we can pop over answer that question right now. But instead of moving on to the next paragraph, many world limits arise in these three versions, pull in different directions. The clashes are not inevitable. Clashes are underlined in the previous video. We could again go over the questions and answers. I'm not going to here. So proactive reading, I pulled out three different strands of argument. Acid very kindly has agreed with us that there are three different arguments here. The clashes are not inevitable between those two ideas. There's a point at which Aristotle, Adam Smith, and focus on actions can all agree. Take fair trade coffee. And we know from our earlier survey that fair trade coffee is like graphics. Graphics is illustrating this idea. So there's fair trade coffee. Coffee is sold with certification that indicates farmers and workers produce it will pay a fair wage, for example. Buying it might have good consequences, be virtuous, and also be the right way to act in a flawed market. Good consequences, that's Adam Smith. Be virtuous, that's Aristotle. Be the right way to act, that's the ideology from paragraph of actions. Common ground like this suggests that even if agreeing on where ethics applies, ethical economics is still possible. So even though there are three different ideas in tension with each other about what ethical economics is, there are still places in the real world where all three of those ideas exist in harmony. See line 57. Whenever we feel queasy about perfect competitive markets, the problem is often rooted in a section of people. The model of man, the human, on which classical economics is based, the entire rational self-being, is a parody, as John Stuart Mill, the philosopher pioneered the model accepted. Okay, so economics is based on a perfectly rational human being. This fictional human being that makes all of their decisions on the basis of self-interest and rationality doesn't exist, is a parody. Continue at 62. Most people, even economists, now accept that this economic man is fiction. We behave like a herd, we fear losses when we hope for gains. Rarely can our brains process all the relevant facts. So if a perfect competitive market, and the reason we feel weird about it, we feel queasy about it, is because it calls into question Adam Smith's idea about being self-interested. Is that self-interest ever truly rational? Because we know that human beings are not pure rational. Let's go. Right, final paragraph. These human quirks, right from the previous paragraph, we're not rational. So these human quirks mean we can make purely rational decisions. There we go. A new wave of behavioral economists aided by neuroscientists is trying to understand our psychology, both alone and in groups, so they can anticipate our decisions in the marketplace more accurately. But psychology also helps understand why we react and discuss economic injustice, or accepting moral law as universal, which means that the relatively new science of human behavior might also define ethics for us. Ethical economics would emerge from one of the least likely places economists themselves. So ultimately we have these three ideas. We've got Smith, we've got Aristotle, and we've got societal actions. So rational self-interest, virtue, and moral actions. And all of these are now complicated by behavioral psychology, which is called BET. The author is saying in this paragraph that behavioral economists and neuroscientists are going to use their science to help understand everything else. Why human beings behave the way they do. And so this last line is kind of a joke with these economists. Ethical economics would emerge from one of the least likely places economists themselves. Because they're trying to ironic idea that since ideas like greed is good, also economists, it seems weird that ethics would arise from them as well. Now, comprehending this irony, I don't think is necessary to answer these questions. I think that's just sort of a little bit of mild economist fun that the author of the passage is having. Alright, so we've read, we've recited. We already had a little bit of graph during our survey set, so I won't take a ton of time. Now we saw the graph compare the profits of fair coffee with the profits of non-fair coffee. Let's move on. So now it's time for us to review what is this passage about. And in order to do that, let's zoom out and take a look at the whole thing. And now this view, I know the text is quite small now, but in this view we can see the shape of the arguments. So in this paragraph here, we're introducing the idea of Adam Smith, using a tiny little note that says greed is good. Here, we're introducing Aristotle, who says it's thought counts. And here, we've got the focus on actions. And these three ideas are all in tension with each other. In this paragraph, we see the idea of free trade coffee, which reconciles 1, 2, and 3. And in the final two paragraphs, we introduce ideas that complicate claims 1, 2, and 3 on how human beings aren't rational actors in the first place. So now I feel like I have a pretty solid handle on this passage. I'm going to move on into individual questions. Okay, so this video was like 16 minutes long. You won't have much time on test day to do the active reading. However, the speed of my thought is going to be much faster than the speed of my voice spelling out my thoughts. And with focused practice, you'll get faster and faster still.
Cool. Oops, I just lost my track, my position. Okay. What can I say about this? I think, I mean, it was a smart analysis. I just find that a lot of times when teachers explain passages, they're explaining it with the benefit of hindsight, and I think that tends to bias explanations towards things that are very, very, very difficult to do in real time. Like underlining claims and fully understanding the logical structure of passages. If you can do it in real time, that'd be amazing. But even me, sometimes I make mistakes along the way, if I'm in real time constraints. So what happens is I tend to focus more on things that you can do without spending too much time. And so that's just my general comment, but everything that was said is all good. So yeah, let's move on. One question at a time. Here we go. Oh, before I get into questions, I do want to say one thing, for anybody who is watching the stream now or who will watch maybe in the future, guys, you never have to watch my entire stream. You literally could just watch it for like 5 or 10 minutes until you find one idea that you think you can practice today, okay? Get that one idea that you really want to try out today and just do it. Just leave the stream. Leave this video. Leave it on, keep it on on the side as a tab or close it, doesn't matter. Just the more important thing is every single day, are you maximizing your opportunities to grow by trying something new with what you're learning about yourself, about the test taking process, about these types of passages, whatever it is, okay? Are you trying something new every day and are you growing from it? That's the most important thing. So I know it's pretty boring to watch a whole stream like this. It's not natural to just watch someone take a whole freaking test like this and make commentary on someone else. Don't do that. Do whatever interests you. Well, that pronunciation came out all weird. Do whatever interests you. As soon as you find one idea that you can work on it. All right. Question 1. Oh yeah, this is definitely written by a different person. Okay, so maybe I would still not rephrase the whole question. I would just say, I'll just complete the sentence. The main purpose of this passage is to suggest potentially how economics can address ethics. I'm like, oh, sorry, I didn't even explain before yes, I'm highly confident that D is the correct answer. And yes, it turns out to be the correct way because honestly, it just matched up with my prediction the best. Examine ways of evaluating the ethics of economics. Okay. This is actually an even better answer than my prediction. My prediction was a little off. It was just a little vague. I said how, in a general way. But here it talks about ways, the 3 different ways, okay, of evaluating the ethics of economic decisions, okay, which includes the views of Smith, Aristotle, and John Stuart. I guess Stuart Mill, yeah. That's only barely mentioned, but yeah, Smith, Aristotle, and a third view, and a potential 4th view. All right, here we go. Analyzing purpose.
The main purpose of the passage is to what? All right, I've talked about the choices because I want to do a process called RAP. And that stands for rephrase if possible and reround and predict. And I really want to focus on the rephrasing and prediction. This is a technique I like to use to help me make sense of questions and rephrase them in my own words so that I have power over them.
Rephrase if possible and what?
To use help me make sense of questions and rephrase them in my own words so that I have power over them. It makes it easier for me to understand. This is a technique I like to use to help me make sense of questions and rephrase them in my own words so that I have power. It stands for rephrase if possible and reround and predict. And I really want to focus on the rephrasing and
Around and predict. Something and predict. Okay.
This is a technique I like to use to help me make sense of questions and rephrase them in my own words so that I have power over them. It makes it easier for me to understand. So first I'm going to rephrase. So the main purpose of the passage is to what? And we can flip around and ask the question, what was the author trying to accomplish? What's that? What was the author's goal? What's the author's goal? And we really luck out on
Okay, yeah, I continue to think this rephrasing itself is not super easy in real time. Doing it in real time, I just feel like, it's just so demanding. It's so stressful when you're taking a test. So in real time, I wouldn't really rephrase it. I would just complete the sentence.
On the passage, it kind of gives it away in the title, right? Because it's asking the question, can economics be ethical? Right? We're very fortunate in that regard. My prediction is going to be that the main purpose of the passage is to try to answer the question, can economics be ethical? When I actually read the passage, I learned about 3 different competing ideas that the author brings up. And so now let's expose the choices and see what we're working with. My prediction about the answer is that it's going to be related to the question of whether econ can be ethical. Let's look at the match my prediction. Choice A, the purpose of the passage is to consider ethical dilemma proposed by cost-benefit analysis. Does that match my prediction? No. B, describe a psychology study of ethical economic behavior. Does that match my prediction? No, it does not. C, argue that the free market prohibited ethical economics. Does that match my prediction about the ways in which economics can be ethical? No, it does not. So with D, examine ways of evaluating the ethics of economics. Cool. So I made my way to the answer pretty quickly. I just want to show you the power of rephrasing the question, writing it down, and then coming up with a prediction about what you expect the answer to be. So we knocked out this question. On test day, you would move on to the next one. But because this is a slowed down instructional video, I want to break down for you why the other choices were not correct. So we can talk about the common varieties of wrong choice you're going to see on test day. So looking back at choice A, why did I mark that as incorrect? Why did I cross out? Well, I think of considering ethical dilemma posed by cost-benefit analysis as certainly something that was mentioned in passage. Cost-benefit analysis was mentioned in discussing Adam Smith, right? Around line 19. Where planners use cost-benefit analysis to justify red line, blah, blah, blah. But it doesn't really have anything to do with the purpose of the passage. In fact, ethical dilemma is not posed by cost-benefit analysis in the passage. But even if it were, it wouldn't have taken very much space in the argument. So I would call this kind of choice too narrow. It's too specific to be about the main purpose of the passage. When I consider whether or not something is too narrow is to evaluate how much actual physical space that argument takes up on the page. If an ethical dilemma posed by cost-benefit analysis were a major part into multiple paragraphs of the passage, then I would be like, oh, maybe that's part of the main purpose. But it's sort of a throwaway reference in one line. So we can cross off and say that's too narrow. Choice B describes psychology study of ethical economic behavior. I don't think that actually happens in the passage. The last couple of paragraphs do mention, there we are. The last paragraph talks about behavioral economists here. I'm on line 7, talking about how.
Okay, going through and eliminating why every single question is wrong is now less about test taking and much more about answering this one particular question. So for these parts, I'm going to skip them all for the sake of saving time because I'm trying to focus more on the genuine know-how of approaching tests in the context of SAT reading literature, SAT reading social science, SAT reading natural sciences, SAT reading history. I'm trying to talk about these tests, right? I'm not necessarily trying to analyze this one question. So if you want to get the answers to this one question, go ahead and watch this video on your own. Join us in our Khan Academy class and just go through it on your own. And then if you have further questions afterwards, go ahead and you can actually use the Khan Academy feature where you can use that discussion board, or you can ask us in our Discord channel and just have a conversation with people that are slowly kind of joining, and get your answers that way, right? But not this stream. This stream, I will not be going through every single answer. I don't think that's a good use of this time.
It's asking a question that is itself asked in the title of the passage. But for future questions like this one, if you're trying to determine the main purpose of the passage, look to see if the idea is mentioned throughout the passage and in the intro and conclusion.
Oh, this is something's not very intuitive about this UI. All right, but let's Let's move on. Question 2. Paired question, analyzing arguments, citing. I kind of wish they would show the question first because it's kind of confusing. Okay. Yeah, these tips. I've said so much about this in the first half of of today's stream that I'm just going to skip. Now it's 6:10. It's 6:10. So I was intending to wrap up 10 minutes ago. Guys, if you don't mind, I'd like to just briefly check my phone and just sort of situate myself. With my current schedule. So I'm gonna briefly put up a splash screen just saying that I'm taking a break. I'll be back in like 5 minutes, and after 5 minutes I'll tell you whether I can continue the stream or need to like pause until tomorrow. Okay? Be right back. Hang on. Is this working? Oh, it is working. Testing. All right, my voice should be coming through. I need to put my earphones in. All right, I think the audio should be all good. I think. Now I'm gonna go, just double checking. Okay, nothing's weird with the, all right. So, no chats since then. We're at questions 2 and 3. It looks like my schedule is a little tight, so I'm gonna have to go. I'll try to wake up and start earlier tomorrow, because my goal today was to finish at least a second passage today. But it turns out I just have a lot to say. I'm just surprised by how much I wasn't expecting to have so much to say about every single question. I thought I'd be zooming through, but it turns out, my approach to the test is becoming clearer. I said Claire. Is becoming clearer to myself, just by comparing against some of the most common advice out there. The advice that's on Khan Academy. Obviously, I respect the work. It's amazing. Amazing free resource. Almost everything that is being said is right. I think if I had to summarize the biggest difference between the types of advice I give versus the type of advice that's being given on Khan Academy, I would say 90% is basically the same, but the 10% is characterized by the fact that I try really hard to give advice that's based on actually what I do when I'm under time constraints. Okay, that it's not something that's unrealistic for somebody to do within real time constraints. And I fear that some of the advice, if you were to take it and apply it literally without thinking, you would actually it would just take too much time to apply every piece of advice, letter for letter, in the real test-taking context. So I think that's a good mentality. I think that's a healthier mentality to have, honestly, than to just be like, hey, somebody said this, so I'll apply it. Instead of doing that, just be like, hey, somebody said this works. I don't know if I trust whether it works. I'm going to go and try it and see what effect it has on me. Does it increase my confidence? Does it decrease my time spent? That's the kind of thing you should be looking for. All right, so questions 2 through 11. Okay, so I think there's 10 questions left. 2 through 11, I'll go over tomorrow when I come back to this passage. And I will try to start earlier in the day tomorrow. So I hope this helps. By the way, guys, this is extremely experimental, just like giving commentary on other people's material and whatnot. But I don't know. I don't know if this is good for you or bad for you, or interesting or boring. I want to know. So if you're actually sticking through with this with me, let me know what's actually helpful for you. Okay? Do you find my advice useful? Do you find this format useful? Do you need something more than you need this and would rather have me do that? What would that be? So those are some questions that are on my mind. Finally, if you haven't yet, besides subscribing and all that other YouTube generic nonsense, you can also join the Khan Academy class. That's not very active right now. I just made it to see what would happen, but there's a class and you can go through the same material with me, maybe ahead of me, so that you can later on hear my version of it. So you can join our Khan Academy class. The link is below in the descriptions. You can also join the vocabulary.com group. I'm not necessarily monitoring it, but basically it'll give you notifications every day to do a quiz or do 3 quizzes. So you can just do that. And then you can also join our Discord and just chat with other people. And there's not a lot of people, honestly, at the moment, but you can come. And my only real request is don't be more of a taker than you are a giver. That's the main thing. Obviously, everyone's going to want to take. That's all good. It's natural, and I'm going to try to give. I'm going to try to give as much as possible. But, try to have the mentality of, giving as much as you take, because I think that helps just not just other people. It actually helps you. It helps you because when you are trying to explain what the right answers are or explain your thought process, that makes you sharper about your own test taking. So it's not just for the good of other people, it's actually for your good that I suggest this general approach of giving as much as you take, if not more. So yeah, come to our Discord channel, hang out with us. I'll be there, as frequently as possible. You can text each other, and if there's actually a lot of demand, if a lot of people join, literally even if just 5 people join, I'm just ready to do other live events besides this sort of streaming through Khan Academy thing. Okay, so I'll see you guys tomorrow, and I hope to just hear more feedback from you guys. All right, see you guys.